All right, kiddies, it's podcast time. So it's Friday night. Jeopardy got interrupted by a video that I didn't want to watch yet. We'll talk about that in itty bitty little bit for a minute. But I'm excited. We have a special guest, Tyler Givins. He's been on a few times before, once as a mayoral candidate, once just as a dude that knows what's going on. And I have some questions for him about candidacy and other things, too. So we'll get into that here in a little bit. So we're Almost in Agreement at gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. Go to the website, almostinagreement.com. While you're there, you can check out nothing yet. I haven't built the Voter Guide 23, but I'm going to start working on it soon. We still got a little while. I think petitions are due in like May or something like that. So we got a hot minute before we really get down to business. And there's only 6 races. Well, 5.5 if you count the judge. But anyway, website is almostinagreement.com. Go there, check it out. You can get links to all the episodes. Share it, tell your friends about us. Favorite podcast providers, we're on all of them. Same deal. Get the word out. Help us let more people know what's going on. So we're going to do a show. Here we go. What's up, fellas?
Biscaden.
What's up?
I'm really mad. Okay, so for a little bit of context here, I invited Tyler on, Monday or Tuesday. I was like, hey, man, if you have to do, come on, do the show. Let's have a good time. And, often when I ask people, the premise is we never really have a plan on what we're going to talk about. But people often ask me, well, what do we want to talk about? So I was like, hey, just, there's a couple things, we've been talking con law a little bit. Here's this funny-ass sheriff's office video that we can make fun of together, and some other stuff. And so we started talking about the situation going on in Georgia as well as the situation on in Memphis. And in the back and forth, it was announced by, I guess, Memphis PD that they were going to release the body cam footage today. And so Tyler and I decided maybe it's a little too fresh if we were to watch it today to try to really talk about it today. So we're like, we'll just kind of put that off or whatever. And so Sam knows all too well the rule is we start after Jeopardy's over. Me and the missus, it's Jeopardy. That's our thing. We have to watch our Jeopardy. And so we start after Jeopardy's over. So me and the missus are watching Jeopardy. And I'm checking the clock and trying to make sure that, I got all the parts and pieces in place when it's time to get started and all that stuff. And then goes the commercial before Final Jeopardy and NBC breaking news, and they start showing the video. So I didn't get to finish Jeopardy, and I had to watch a portion of the video that I didn't want to watch yet because we made a point that we weren't going to talk about it. So that's the totality of the Memphis story that I'm willing to jump on right now. Other than, like I said, when we were talking about it a couple of days ago, Tyler's like, everything I've heard about it is this is more or less a Floyd 2. And so what's the video going to say? It's going to prove all the rumors, I suppose. But I don't really want to watch a guy get beat to death.
Except for more reference to Rodney King.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Really?
As far as it being essentially it was just beating.
Yeah. Right. Well, I guess, Floyd was kind of that suffocation situation. But, and so, I don't know. I just, it's unfortunate all over. I've heard that 2 firemen got fired for their role in the action, and then the 5 officers have been arrested.
Right. The city took a lot of action. DA took some action right away. I think that's good. Hopefully that'll have a positive impact on...
All 5 officers have been charged with murder.
Yeah.
And I think, hopefully. I don't know. There's part of me that the thing back here that kicks off all the time is, are they just putting them somewhere in custody to keep them off the streets tonight for when people are really pissed off?
Yeah, time will tell.
No, even in jail, they will be in protective custody just because they are.
Right.
They were law enforcement.
I agree. I'm not trying to get too crazy on my conspiracy. Right. So anyway, that's totality. That's Memphis. That's what's going on over there. Yeah. Anybody out in the Memphis area, be safe, be careful. Don't be kind to each other as best you can. So I don't know. So anyway, we prefaced a con law, and so Sam and I have been arguing back and forth about the certificate of need stuff. And I asked Tyler if he knew anything about it.
I think we tipped into it once, but both of us were like, we don't really know much about it.
I mean, I
know the general concept.
Well, I'm a certified expert. I watched 30 minutes of a YouTube video before I came over here.
That's why I bring guests on. They know more.
Yeah.
I just think, I shared a couple articles with Sam about it, and at least one of them was it's the Beacon out of Nashville, which is a very libertarian-oriented
one.
Huh?
Sorry, go ahead.
I said one of them was this one. What did I say?
At least one.
Okay, so at least one.
Two of your 3.
Okay. What was the
second and the third one? Was just generic.
Second one it was an op-ed or whatever in the Tennessean, but it was by some
Well, there's certainly a lot of media out there about this thing. So I spent too much time on YouTube probably. But, like, I've been seeing advertisements, stop the Tennessee con law. And, like, whenever
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, whenever I see a big ad spend like that, I'm like, who is spending so much money to fight this thing, right? Like, this is obviously not a grassroots effort. Obviously, there's some kind of interest that has an opinion about it.
Yeah. I don't know the answer per se,
right,
but my gut reaction would be it's another hospital group the size of Tenova or something like that wants to get in.
That's what I imagine.
And all the growth that's going on here, it's like there's a huge market in this place. We have a great system of whatever that we think our product is better, or at least comparable. We want to get in on this.
Or we can make money, yeah.
Right. And, again, to me, the general framework as it stands is that, basic adjustments to hospital capacity have to be approved by this special body. This special body includes directors or top brass from the hospitals in the region, as well as the health department and other.
It differs from state to state.
Yeah, I think so.
Right. Well, I mean, I think
some states, I think Kentucky, I heard it's like the governor has sole discretion under their law.
There's like 20 states that actually killed their con law in the last decade or so.
Well, apparently Tennessee had a con law related to like elder care facilities or something like that they repealed and then reinstated. Yeah. But I couldn't find too much information.
Yeah, I did see a little bit of that because they were trying to get it to more. I mean, as we have an aging population, we need more.
And then there was like an over-proliferation, and then they were trying to, I don't know, it was like
I just like, the main thing to me that I can't wrap my head around is like I mean, I think you used the right term of over-proliferation, but why is that a problem?
Right, you would think the market would solve that kind of thing, right? That's the idea. If there's too many service providers, they won't be able to make enough money, they'll go out of business. It should reach some kind of equilibrium. At least that's the theory,
right? And or they fail at doing so and they go out of business, right. Just like because the bad analogy, my apples to oranges that Sam got mad at me for was how many restaurants do new restaurants open in this town every year, and there's no governing body that says, well, we have enough restaurants, you can't open yours.
But restaurants are different than healthcare, though. That
was the funny thing. In reading some of the different articles and trying to look for information on it, I saw like 3 different pieces that all use the same analogy. It's like, well, you don't have McDonald's going to Burger King asking for their permission. And I was like, I
don't
that
have
already.
to go to
like,
McDonald's.
Why is everyone
Burger
using
King,
the same analogy? I'm like, I think somebody's talking to each other.
I never read that from anywhere else, but I mean, it's just.
Well, you obviously didn't read much of what you read because you sent that shit to me anyway.
Yeah, well, the articles I saw Cato Institute had an article, like Heritage Foundation had an article or something like that. So I'm like, okay, there's right-wing think tanks putting out big think pieces on this. I saw some op-eds in Wall Street Journal and New York Times, and it was all of those were, we need to get rid of con laws. Right. So I was like, where's the other voice? Where's the other side of it?
Like 3 or 4 sentences into the first one he sent me, and I was like, I can already tell this is very slanted.
But that's one of the weird things about it, though, is that like I've missed finding anybody that's arguing for the need.
Right.
Like there is the fact that it exists. That's the entirety of your argument for why it's needed. Like I don't understand. Like there's nobody that says, "Well, this is a great thing because X, Y, Z."
It seems like somebody thought, "Oh, our healthcare system isn't working like we wanted it to, so let's put this con law Band-Aid on it because that'll help us control prices." And then we've just still got the Band-Aid on, and it's not even. Right. Who knows if it's working or not? We don't even know.
That's kind of where I'm at on it. And it seems to me like I think again the restaurant analogy would be even a bad one. Whatever. If we're going to have extra of a thing, I'd rather have extra healthcare than extra McDonald's. If we're gonna,
if something that we said about that, yeah.
If we're gonna have extra, we might as well. Like it could have been really handy to have a bunch extra a couple of years ago.
Yeah, really.
I mean, and even inside, like there's other ones because some of it's talking about services that hospitals provide, or adding a new service, or expanding services they already do. Like if UT Hospital wants to get another MRI machine, they have to ask somebody. It's like, well, it's a huge ass hospital. They move thousands of patients through there. They think they need a new MRI machine. Who is the governor in Kentucky or whatever different version we have here on who's on the list of people to say that you shouldn't?
Yeah, and they're in some places. I don't know what it's like in Tennessee. I guess I didn't study everywhere, but they're fungible. Like you can sell it. So if you got a certificate of need to get an MRI.
Like liquor license used to be in
Tennessee. Yeah. If you got a certificate to get an MRI and another hospital wants it.
merge with another hospital that already had an existing certificate of need, and it would kind of come together since you were the same entity at that point.
Or if you applied for one and you got it, and then you never built a hospital.
I did see there was one state that I think had like a moratorium that if you got a certificate of need, you had a year to essentially I guess, start that
ground.
process.
Yeah.
It's not like you can just buy this up and hold on to it for a while.
That seems reasonable if you're going to have this.
If you're going to have the thing, you got to
right.
use it.
Yeah. So that makes sense. But
You said you're going to do this because we needed to do it. Now you're just not doing it. Do we need it or not?
Right.
Well,
it sounds kind of like
I did it because what I didn't need was that guy to do it.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to hold on to this one so that guy can't do it. Market.
Yeah.
Not
Right.
really.
It sounds kind of like taxi medallions in New York City.
Yeah.
I remember when Uber was new, that was kind of a story for a while. People spent $1 million on an auction for a taxi medallion, and then Uber is kind of coming in sideways and not getting licensed and stuff. So if the con certificate is like your your hospital taxi medallion, and they're trading them around, and it seems like a weird system. It seems like a weird system for taxis.
I mean, the taxi one I could get it so... I don't know. I can't.
But it's like, why aren't you just letting the free market control how many taxis you have? If there's too many taxis, they won't make enough money. There'll be less taxis.
Right. We have too many taxis on the road.
Right.
Yeah, but most companies are going to say, how do I get more business? Like, if I put more taxis out there, that's how I make more money for my business.
Right.
And then eventually you may reach that breaking
you always
point.
saturate the market. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, maybe I bought too many.
There's only so much pie to eat.
Right. Yeah. Especially when you're competing with a subway system
you can
and
crawl
bus system
through
that's in
city.
place as well.
Yeah, that's what is really confusing about the idea behind the con law, though, is that if we don't let as many healthcare places be built, that will make things cheaper. But usually you think competition brings prices down.
Right.
So you'd think you'd want there to be a lot of competition. But then you start thinking, healthcare equipment is expensive and it's subsidized and it gets real complicated, and I don't know all the ins and outs of that.
I will say this. When we were discussing it the first time, Sam brought up a point that I hadn't thought of, and I haven't found anybody to verify whether it's a reality or just a very smart idea out of Sam's head.
I did read a little bit of
was that how'd you say it again? I can't remember.
Subsidies, basically. Government
Right.
subsidies.
So
I think it said that stopped in 1987 as far as federal subsidies.
Yeah.
Now, state subsidies could be a little bit
So
different.
Medicare used to require a certificate of need back in the 80s or something like that, and then the federal government stopped that program. Again, I listened to that one lecture, so I'm obviously an expert now.
I'm just saying,
like
if there's a subsidy, if UT Hospital, for example, gets a subsidy for the total number of beds they have or the services they do, that they could theoretically add beds or services without actually doing anything with them just to get a bigger subsidy from the state. But that'd be assuming that the subsidy is literally written
Right.
$5 per year per bed you have.
Right, and that'd be a pretty poorly written subsidy.
Which, I mean, that doesn't sound crazy to me.
My thought was more, I guess, before I kind of read some of what I think I may know, to be even more vague.
Have we all? I think we've hedged enough. I think everybody listening knows that we don't know.
We
what the
really
fuck
don't
we're
know a lot
talking
about this. Yeah.
Did we preface we don't know what the fuck we're talking about?
I think that's implied by the intro song.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So why are we supposed to have an opinion about it? Maybe that's the question I have. Why do we see all these advertisements where we're supposed to have an opinion about this thing?
I mean, to me, it's on the core philosophy on it is it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense in a competition or market standpoint. And if the argument is ever going to be about trying to make healthcare a better thing, this seems to me a simple roadblock that can be picked up and moved out of the way. Yeah. And maybe it does a little bit, maybe it doesn't. But at least let's throw out what we can into this giant mess of a system that needs a ton of work.
Right.
But this one just seems like an obvious, easy first. Okay, let's kick this out of the way and let's see if maybe some things happen.
Oh yeah. Keep an eye on it. I feel like more bills should be written with sunshine clauses or revisitation clauses where you have to do a study and come back.
Yeah, sunset.
Thank you. Yeah, sunset clauses.
Yeah, I think the federal funding started in the 60s. And it started a little bit after World War II when there was kind of an influx of population, and they were trying to expand the availability of hospitals to rural areas and just expanding healthcare in general. But I think they stopped that in the 80s. As far as federally funding it. And that was my main concern when we first started talking about it, is that I wonder if it was just the worry of so many people saying, hey, I want to build this hospital. Will, federal government, state government, will you guys kick in 50%? And then that hospital fails, and then essentially taxpayers are out however much it costs to build that hospital.
Yeah. I get that.
And that was the one opinion piece I tried to send to you, and I hadn't really thought of. I think she was referencing more as far as Florida. I said each state kind of regulates theirs differently as far as how many kind of medical institutions get overseen by this board that approves or whatever.
I guess to me, I think it brings into. I think to me, there's the obvious next question of.
Thanks for letting me finish.
I apologize. My bad. Go. Please finish. I'm sorry.
That's what the point that I hadn't really thought of that she was kind of bringing up is the possibility of, if there isn't that certificate of need, you could have essentially more lucrative medical service providers come in as far as, just a pop-up shop doing MRI imaging or just CAT scans or whatever. Essentially something they know they can make a lot of money off of, where hospitals are still, and her point was, and it is true that a lot of hospitals still are required to take indigent care. Like ERs, you cannot turn away anybody. Right.
So,
but essentially, that hospital with so many different departments is, spread out. They do have many departments that are constantly non-profitable. They have other that are, and that was one thing that she kind of pointed out, is could be a concern of, if you're using that certificate of need, you could have just kind of money-hungry businesses that want to pop up a whole bunch of little places around it, to where that hospital that was making, was able to break even off of having those one or two lucrative services that they were providing, are now doing mainly just things that they're losing money on constantly.
Right, and currently that company wouldn't be able to come in because they wouldn't be able to get the certificate of need. The hospital would get it before they did, or whatever, through this board. Or
right, the hospital would already have it, so that would be the place that you.
Or if there were hospital needed, if there was a new MRI needed, like both parties could apply for it. I guess
Or even just if you built 5 hospitals when you have room for one, you've already staffed all those doctors, all those nurses, all the janitorial staff.
Right, but that
everything
to me
across
is the
the
market
board.
part. As the market would fix that over time.
Yeah,
regardless.
it should. Yeah.
As long as there's not a subsidy in place that is paying for these hospitals outside of the whatever. Because again, I think the overarching point that I was interrupted you with, and I apologize again, is that healthcare is a profit-rearing enterprise. I think that's a fair statement.
It is. Whether it should be or not is a different question,
right.
but it is.
But it is. And so at what point is an automatic subsidy for a portion of the economy needed at any level if we're going to agree that this is that everybody that plays the game is playing this game for money? And so that to me is, again, I think that illustrates. I mean, I don't disagree. Like, I get what you're saying as far as, if that's where the big money is, that's all you do, and you don't do the other things. And then we all of a sudden have all sorts of high-end, high-dollar stuff that makes a ton of money, but we don't have any basic needs, basic care stuff for the general population being a problem. Then that would be when you insert a subsidy, because that's the thing that you need to need, and you don't subsidize the totality of it. You subsidize the specific.
All right. But like Mr. Givins was saying before, if you had multiple hospitals.
Mr. Givins, Tyler, please.
I was raising this staff. I had to throw it in there just for fun. If you have multiple hospitals, and they're not making much money, I guess a lot of people's fears, and there's not a whole lot of data out there, just because
there's always been something in place meddling.
You can theorize something that could happen, and there's no real world example of it. But if you got multiple hospitals and they have operating costs, if they've got to have you've got to have staff there all the time or whatever, keep the lights on, keep the machine running, keep the machines fixed. Eventually, if they're not getting enough patients because they're one of 5 hospitals in this tiny town, they've got to start raising costs because their costs are going up. They don't have enough customers or patients to keep the lights on.
And because healthcare is inelastic, though. It's not like it doesn't respond to pricing and demand. It's right. Healthcare is like people get sick, they go get healthcare. I mean, it does respond to pricing a little bit. If you make it cheaper, more people have access to it. More people will go get it who needed it and weren't getting it before. But
we've been going through the process of trying to get insurance for our staff, and it's like, I understand the hesitation of losing a percentage of your check right now to this thing. That sucks. And it's like, everybody knows you need insurance, but everybody knows that I also need to pay rent.
Right.
And as best anybody can, it for a lot of people, there's a real trade-off there. There's a real
one thing's got to be paid, and one thing it's that cushion just in case I break my arm.
It's a dice roll, right? You're like, I'll be fine this year. I'll be lucky, but you can't be lucky on rent.
Right.
Landlord's
going to kick you out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you can find a stick and some ace bandage,
or just like maybe just don't go on that ski trip this year. Skip the whitewater rafting. Maybe you don't skydive for summer.
Be boring and lame.
Yeah, take a year off and have a good time.
I'm not even trying to save on healthcare costs.
I got to sign a waiver. Yeah, never mind.
I can't go to laser tag anymore.
Oh gosh.
Trying to think of things I've signed.
I can't sue you if I get hurt.
I went roller skating last weekend for a kid's birthday party.
You can't do that if you don't have an insurance.
Yeah, like there's a big sign on the door. It's like the risk, and it's like, damn, I'm at that age where I actually got to think about this for a second. Because I can skate, I know what I'm doing, but one fall is major. Where little man was on the ground more than he was on his feet, and like complained a little bit about his knee hurting a little bit afterwards. And it's like, I would have been just sitting for maybe a week had I fallen once, like the 1,000 times you did. Just one time, I'd have been broke in.
Yeah, the recovery time is just different.
Yeah, that is a good way to put it. So anyway, that's
That's cons.
That's
we covered it perfectly, boys. Wrap it up.
Everybody, you know what you need to do with it. Call your congressperson and get it fixed.
Yeah. It all started, I think, it was just like watching YouTube. I kept seeing this fucking ad all the time. I was like, what the fuck is this? And why is it on every single commercial?
So dramatic. The TN con law.
Yeah.
Speaking of
videos.
Yeah, it says somewhere about it. I can't remember what it is.
I don't remember either.
I hadn't gone to their website. I'm like, I know it's going to be
super
like
Tennesseans against the con law or something like that. Something generic like that.
Repeal the con law.
I would laugh if we got the TN
choice
con
about
law
your health care
while you're trying to pull up the sheriff's video.
Your insurance company restricts your choice of health care more than the fucking con law does.
Right, yeah.
Oh, you're not in network? Yeah, never mind.
So this is I'm not sure how this is going to sit, legally speaking.
This is it's public.
I wasn't sure if this was fake when I first saw it. Like, I had to go to YouTube to who put this out. I'm like, is this a real like channel?
So this is, go look it up. It's Your Career Starts Here, DIU Studios, Knox County Sheriff's Office. That's the YouTube channel is DIU Studios KCSO.
It's got a whopping 768 views. Yeah,
like 7 of them are me now.
Right, yeah, I'm at least 2. So
33 people subscribe,
and all these my first drone shots where it's got the drone over the neighborhood and the drone flying through a door between some people.
I mean, the pilot's pretty good.
He's not bad.
I hope so. He's probably some poor kid that was in a warehouse in Kansas bombing half of Afghanistan.
This isn't the one you sent me.
Is this a different? Oh yes, these suspect pictures are great. They've got like a schlubby white dude,
right? One of the other officers.
And that motorcycle's guy's looking. He's looking real fit on his motorcycle there, looking real intimidating, showing that their office staff is all women. Doing that sort of thing. Now that shot right there, I wondered, did they fly the drone through the patrol car? That's what I was really curious about, because that was really close to that officer. And then here we've got the helicopter.
Yeah. What I would notice, too, is like the most recognizable anything is all downtown Knoxville stuff, which they technically have jurisdiction but don't really operate.
Oh, this guy jumping the fence was great. Both of them jumping the fence was great.
Yeah, so anyway, this great music is brought to you by Knox County Sheriff's Office, everybody, as we watch this ridiculous video.
Yeah, some kind of join the Knox County Sheriff's Office today.
Yep.
And we're fading out on a guy in Superman.
I'm Tom
Spangler.
Knox County Sheriff. If you've ever thought about wanting to go into law enforcement or corrections, or if you already have experience and looking for a new start,
then
we here at the Knox
sandwich.
County Sheriff's Office would love to have you. All you have to do is go to joinkcso.com.
All right, so
but what?
Go to
what
join
is the
KCSO.
DIU?
I don't know.
That's what made me think it was fake. I was like,
yeah, it's got the seal.
Like a DUI. Why is it DIU?
DIU Studios. Do they have any other videos, or is that the only one?
Just the one.
Huh.
So I had like 33
It
people.
may be
44 members, subscribers.
44 subscribers.
That's why I was like, is this real?
13,000 views. They're out
on that one. So that's a different one.
What the
Tech
fuck?
Division. Oh, that's their Tech Division.
Tech Division.
Okay.
I think that's the one you sent me.
I am curious, like how much they spent on the. I mean, it was decent production value. Like they apparently hired a studio to do it. I mean, that's what it looks like. Maybe unless they have a studio, that's their studio's name is DIU Studio.
Probably Department of. It's probably something like Department of Internal.
Digital Investigation Unit.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey.
I like
I
it.
think you're right, sir.
All right.
So we got to the bottom of that.
We nailed the con law. We nailed the acronym for the studio.
Just wrap it up.
2 for
Let's go
2.
home,
Yeah.
I call it the KCSO Tech Division. Apply.
Huh.
But yeah, it has me asking some questions. I have some questions after watching said video. Specifically,
How much did this cost the taxpayers?
that's one too. I don't know if I really care about that. Like, I mean, they have a drone, right? So they have a drone that we paid for. So I'm more concerned about how much we paid for this drone that they're flying around, because this isn't like, your Kmart.
I'm sure it's a nice
$50 drone. This is probably some surplus Department of Defense drone that's probably was originally like $50,000. It's probably still $15,000 for our purposes or whatever.
Well, you said something about like you looked up some record on some parts, but it was for the helicopter.
Yeah,
which was also used.
But that
in
was
the video.
but it was so. I remember like that one was like I learned some neat stuff about how this county operates in that diggings. And like I go back to episode like 50 or something like that. People, that's where I was digging into this originally. But like so it ended up being like helicopter parts, like windscreen replacements, some motor and engine repair units, and this, that, and the other. And like. Regular value was like 50 something grand, and as surplus from Department of Defense, it was only like 15 something. And so anything over $10,000 the sheriff office wants to buy, it has to get commission approval, even if it's in the budget that the commission approves for the sheriff's office. Any specific item has to have specific approval. And if there's any sort of gift or donation as part of it, commission also has to oversee it. And so I'm not sure which one applied and why commission was looking at it. I think the application was because it was 25, 30 grand worth of stuff that they're only paying 15 for it. So that price difference is considered a gift from the Department of Defense to the sheriff's office. And that's why the commission had to oversee it. But they obviously approved it. And our helicopters has new windscreens and whatnot. But that got me that got me digging into the whole drone usage in the city and the county and what I think's appropriate or what I think we think should be appropriate kind of stuff of like where the line is and surveillance and stuff like that the sheriff should or shouldn't be allowed to do, and or the KPD for that matter. And so one of the clips in that video is them flying over a neighborhood. And I always make the reference if I'm in my backyard and they fly that thing over and look down on and see something they want to come bother me about, can they? Can't unsee it. Maybe they didn't actually record said video, but they saw it. Do I have to answer questions on something that they didn't have the right to see? Do they have the right to see it just because they're that high in the air?
And like with
how high up.
The resolution of the picture and all that stuff too. If you're looking in somebody's backyard, what's the difference between a tomato plant and something that's not supposed to be there, right?
Actually, like genetically very similar to the plant you're referencing, tomatoes.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
If I know the reference correctly, but. And it's again, but it's the point being, it's like what, like I don't know the rules on this.
Right?
Are there rules on this? Because I mean, hell, at this point, you got satellites that can take a picture of your asshole from space.
There's laws on commercial use, and then you may get into that gray area.
There's a state law
enforcement use.
There's a state law about law enforcement use that requires a warrant for certain things, and then for other things it's not. It's like anything that's like a special event, like if they're doing traffic at a football game or some kind of crowd control, it's like that's automatically allowed. There's like a laundry list of things that are allowed.
That initial viewing may give them the ability to get a warrant to then maybe come back and try to view again.
That would be fruit of the forbidden tree situation.
Well, there is case law, and I don't remember the case, but it's like a helicopter flew over a guy's backyard. They looked through a roof of like a greenhouse, like a tile was missing on this roof of a greenhouse, and they said they saw a pot plant. And the helicopter's like, 2,000 feet in the air or whatever, how high it is, and they're using bare eyes, not binoculars or anything. So, the defense argued they couldn't possibly have seen that, and the case goes back and forth. I think it made it all the way up to the Supreme Court, but I think the argument was if an officer sees it with his bare eye or thinks he sees it with his bare eye, that's probable cause, at least to try to get a warrant. So,
like part one of that, I could almost get on board with it, but when you add the thinks he could have seen it,
right? It's like what defines seeing something, right? I would think like if you took a photograph that was clear to a reasonable person, like to a jury of your peers, but
at zero zoom,
right.
But I don't know.
That's weird. I don't like it.
That's where it gets hard to litigate. What's truly in the mind of someone. But I mean, if you have a quote unquote trained officer that believes they see something, just if you did a traffic stop and he looking through a tinted window believes they see a weapon, that gives them probable cause. Like, I believed in my heart of hearts that I saw a weapon in there.
Well, you mentioned a tinted window, not to even take it all the way to the weapon. It's like if they look at your window and they think it's too tinted. And like people get pulled over for tinted windows all the time. And like if the officer thinks your window's too tinted, he can pull you over. He can order you out of the vehicle. Right. He might be able to do a surface pat down of you. And that's Terry stop, right? Even if like he looks at your window, if any other person looks at your window like this window's clear, the officer could still say, well, I thought it was tinted until I checked it. I mean, they are allowed to do that. Not that they should or would, but they're allowed to.
They think it looks like you don't have your seatbelt on.
Right. Yeah. I think you don't have your seatbelt on. I got pulled over and given a warning for texting while driving, but actually I was stopped at a red light. I put a podcast on, put my phone down, and then scratched my back. Well, I scratched my back while I was driving, and the officer pulled me over because it looked like I was still messing around on my phone. And I was like, I even pulled my phone out. I was like, look, you can see I've not sent a text message for 30 minutes. I put a podcast on, I put it down, and he gave me a warning and let me go.
Oh, technically, it's supposed to be hands-free all the time.
Right. So he probably could have given me something. He probably could have given me something. But
I mean, I'd say 9 times out of 10, a cop's just going to give you, unless you're straight up like swerving and it looks like you're just being.
He checked my registration. Everything was valid.
Let you keep doing this. Yeah.
So
knock it off. So anyway, but yeah, that was a terrible video. I don't know anybody. I couldn't think.
The other one was worse.
I couldn't think of anybody that I know that would think that wasn't already wanting to be a cop. Like, you could have just done a poster that says, "Hey, you want to be a cop? Go to this website." I can't think that anybody went, "Oh, that's so cool! I know I want to be a cop. I didn't want to be a cop before, but now
I bet they've got 768 new recruits knocking down their door."
I mean, I don't envy it. I don't envy Spangler for that part of the job. I'm sure trying to hire right now is not fun at all.
Yeah.
And maybe, if nothing else, for political purposes, I'm trying. People see. I'm putting ads out. They've got billboards around town.
Right. Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting that they all popped up right before election cycle.
That makes sense, doesn't it?
I mean, I thought it was a smart move.
Yeah.
Personally. I'm your sheriff. We need more of you guys. Come join us. I'm not saying that you should vote for me, so I'm still your sheriff after I hire you, but while you're there, I mean, just throwing it out there.
Good time to be recruiting people. It'd be a really good time to be giving people jobs right before the election.
Right before an election.
Yep.
I mean, he hired me. I have to vote for him. Not that we had great options. Could have brought some JJ back.
Yep.
JJ seemed like a fun dude.
Re-elect.
I tried really hard to get him on, and I talked to him back and forth a number of times, and we just could not get our schedules.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
I saw him at one event, I think.
He seems like a really fun guy. Like, he seems like one of those guys. Like, I have zero to like about you politically or anything like that, but you're a fun dude to hang out with. That's the feeling I got off of him and talking to him on the phone and stuff. So I could be wrong. I didn't get to prove that point, but like, that's how me and Randy Pace are. Like, me and Randy are not on the same page on politics, but he's a fun guy. Like, I enjoy him as a person, even though, like, I don't know, man, do a little inspect. Not expect or whatever. He's got all those little phrases. He's a great dude. I love that guy. Anyway, so on the KSO or on the sheriff's office thing, you think we're actually going to get? Do you think Dasha's going to pull off the subpoenas and get us some official testimony?
That'll be interesting, right? I mean, Larson J. Would you grab me one of mine out of there while you're in there? Yeah. These terrapins.
There's one on the door, I think, that's mine or whatever.
I'm trying to remember who challenged Dasha when she was talking about it. Was Larson J. asked her a question, are you going to subpoena the girl?
Right, that was Larson being dickish.
Yeah, Larson being a little dickish. Nice snag. And
teamwork, fellas, nice.
And the other was
Rhonda.
Yeah, Rhonda. Yeah,
I mean, I get it because there's parts and pieces that are really interesting in the history of some of the people that play. Like, generally speaking, I think I would have assumed in any conversation that Gina Oster would be the whatever Spangler says is right. Let's just leave it alone. Except that she doesn't like Spangler, and it was clear in her time from the mayor council that she's not a fan of Spangler. And so it's not that she's not a friend to police; she just doesn't like this one.
Right.
And so she's kind of on board with Dasha trying to get some answers out of this one. More to embarrass Spangler probably than to get the truth. But, sometimes you take the allies you can get.
Well, and Kim Frazier asked a question that was kind of supporting Dasha, too, I thought. She kind of asked, is it normal to have to file a public information request to get info from the sheriff's department? I thought she was asking that question to kind of show that it really isn't. Right. So I think Dasha might have some allies there on that. We'll have to see how it shakes out. Yeah. I really wish that the sheriff's deputies would just voluntarily come forward and tell their side of the story. Right, just give us their account of what they say happened, because we had, the employee there who got fired for whatever reason. She came in and told her side, at least her version of events.
Right.
And then we haven't heard the deputy's version of events. We heard we're not going to come, nobody's going to come, was the message that Dasha got from the sheriff.
Yeah, so. Which is abnormal, to say the least, historically speaking, as far as sheriffs and commission dealings, as I understand it. It's not Normally, when the commission's like, "Hey, we have a couple of things that we'd like to talk to you about," usually the sheriff shows up.
Usually, they line the back of the room with the deputies if they really want to show up.
Depends on what the occasion is.
Yeah.
That's another thing we could talk about. I'll save that for a second. I just think, like, to me, like, when I talked to Spangler, and this was before election cycle. This was just Spangler as sheriff when I had him on the show, and Kim for that matter. I did an episode with her as well. Both of them talk about, bridging that gap, whatever kind of thing. And like, I made the joke to Spangler. It's like, hey man, I'm a 40-year-old white guy, and I don't like dealing with your guys. How do we fix that?
Yeah.
If we're going to count the privilege game and all that kind of stuff on it, I'm as privileged as it gets, and I still I have no desire to deal with your people.
Yeah.
How do we fix that gap? And he talked about like all these different stuff, and it's important, and we need to figure out how to be more community oriented and all this stuff. And it's like, you had a golden opportunity and you shit all over it.
Right.
And
yeah, exactly. Right there. Here was the opportunity to shine, right? To
and
come
you keep
forward.
Doubling down on nope. But it's like, come on, man. This is it. This is what you were talking to me about a year and a half ago.
Yep.
You were telling me all about how you wanted an opportunity to show this, and this is an opportunity.
How typically politician is that, though,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Campaign
for sure.
promises.
Yeah.
So
100%.
But if they would have done different on this instant, would your opinion have changed? Do you think most people's opinions would have changed?
Maybe not in totality,
Honestly?
but it would have. Yeah.
Well,
I think if the initial thing came out in the weird way it came out, and the crazy shit like, I'm not going to McAllister's anymore because they hate cops thing, and that started happening, and Spangler came out and brought his guys and said, hey, we screwed up.
Or even there was a misunderstanding. Even
Right.
make it neutral.
But even the realistic one, it should be the policy is that sometimes people don't like us, and we have to put up with that. And that's the policy
That's right.
here. These guys broke the rule, making a scene out of this. There shouldn't have been a scene out of this. Kim should have been reprimanded for her actions in it. These two guys should have been reprimanded. If the goal is to try to bridge the gap, then his job should have been like, hey, that's not how we do things. This was isolated incident, and they will be dealt with for their transgressions. We understand that some people don't like us, and sometimes bad things, our cops have to deal with stuff they shouldn't. Sometimes my guys have to deal with stuff they shouldn't, or girls, apologize. But they should have to deal with stuff, they just have to deal with it, and, as a policy, we deal with it.
It's about professionalism. When you're on the job, when you're wearing the uniform, you should be presenting, and this is what the policy manual says for KPD, and I'm sure for KCSO as well, is you're supposed to present respectable appearance to the public and proper decorum and blah blah blah. Like that's all in their policies. Like you're supposed to be nice and polite, and if they can't be polite to a 15-year-old cashier, I've always heard if you take your date out, your date's rude to the waiter, that's a pretty bad sign about your date, right? So
right. Yeah, 100%. But to answer your question, yes, I think if the initial explosion happened, there was this case, and everybody started freaking out, and the social media sphere was going crazy, and Spangler stepped in and apologized and made it clear that was not okay what his side of the story or what his side did. That this is not how we operate. Good for her, get out there working at 15. Good for her to try to help pay the bills, do all the stuff that she's doing. Whether she likes us or not, that's okay. I think I would have a better picture of them. It wouldn't completely bridge the gap of all the different things that I don't like about police officers and stuff like that, but it would be a step in the right direction. I would feel more comfortable having a conversation moving forward, like this guy has a goal to get there, as opposed to, fuck off, I'm the sheriff, I do what I want.
I also think as soon as the sheriff's department admitted any kind of fault, there would be that automatic call for, I don't think people would be satisfied with just reprimand. Depending on, I guess, how it would, because,
well, again,
we're playing a what if.
Right.
But if they admitted that they exaggerated the story, would you ask for their job for exaggerating a situation?
Public
there would be people that would call for them to be fired. They're like,
agree.
you don't need to be an officer anymore.
I agree, and I think that if the politician that Spangler has to be the job needs to go, hey guys, I hear what you're saying, but I'm also 65 short right now. And these guys aren't bad officers; they just had a bad day.
I think the point you're making, Seth, is that there were a lot more diplomatic options he had than no, we're not going to show up and talk about it. There were, whether it was an apology or something in between. There were a lot of better options they had, and they chose to not even join the conversation.
The worst. The worst possible.
Well, other than just coming out and saying it's all her fault, she's a terrible piece of junk and blah blah blah.
Yeah, but even that, we could.
have a discussion about it.
Right, you could have some real discussion about it, and maybe some journalism might happen around town that really digs into what actually really actually happened.
Right. But I mean, a lot of times legally, once you admit fault, it can also make you liable in certain situations.
And that's
so
unfortunate.
where the sheriff's department could be filed civilly. If she lost her job, they could sue the department for her losing her job. So I've read about like certain states where like
to do it anyway, just because
even if like companies or somebody like they literally like they can't say they're sorry because once they say they're sorry, a lot of people are like, I wish they would just say they're sorry for their mess up and the doctor messing up and my daughter dying or whatever.
I mean, I think.
But once they admit fault and even say sorry, that opens them up to liability.
I think you can word it well enough that you can apologize without admitting guilt.
Right.
In a
things
way
could
that
have done better. Yeah, you don't admit that you did something wrong, but things could have
been handled better.
Right, I mean, you could even play the ignorance card of like, I don't know exactly what happened, but it doesn't matter.
We're going to start an investigation, and
or even we're sending our offers through a mandatory 10-hour public relations class or something. Do something.
Yeah. Like I don't know exactly what happened, but something happened, and we're going to make sure that whatever happened on our side doesn't happen again.
Right.
If it's something that we did wrong, we're going to make sure it doesn't happen again. That's not admitting that you did anything wrong.
Right.
You're just kind of alluding to them.
Totally could have been handled differently, and I don't know if that was Spangler's decision or if that was his PR person of like, you should say this, don't say anything else.
Right. Well, and she has the record of not being really good at her job either. So,
It being part of the incident, right?
Being the incident, but again, I think it's unfortunate the way it's rolled out, and I think it's a really big opportunity missed.
Yep.
And I wish it hadn't gone down like that. So let's go to school.
So Facebook conversation started today instead of Facebook conversation started a few days ago, huh?
Yeah, I don't know, whatever. Because I mean, like the official announcement came out, and this 865 Academy thing, which I'm not fully versed on it. I'm as expert as you are on con law from a couple of YouTube videos. I did get to sit and listen to Scott and Jesse at the Compass talk about it while we were recording their podcast today, and so I do have a little bit of I don't know. Gleaned knowledge from
secondhand investigative journalism, something like that.
And so we've had the conversation about schools a ton of times on this show about a whole bunch of different parts and pieces, the Hillsdale College mess, and what the schools are and who should have control of the schools and that kind of stuff. And to me, I don't understand how this all sits in. Like, where's the state in this conversation? Like, does the state have any play? Because my understanding of the way the schools work is nothing happens inside the school curriculum-wise that the state doesn't approve. And I haven't heard that this was like, I know part of the actual like vocational thing that Jacobs did, that was approved a couple of years ago, but that was building an actual building. That's a separate place to do stuff. I don't know where this sits in the grand curriculum inside the state conversation. But again, I guess the real question, I guess the real starting point for the conversation is, what are schools supposed to be? Mm-hmm. What are we supposed to be doing with our kids? Like, what are we trying to create through schools? And is this thing a potential way to get us to whatever end that is? And so there's two different easy places to detract here of, well, I guess for conversation's sake, let's do the given that this fits inside an end goal. There is an end goal in mind here. This end goal in mind here is to I guess, it's more focused sub portions of education for the future of a student. My understanding is it's like there's it's 6 different academies that
very career focused, though, right? That's the aspect that's different, is that each of these academies is going to have some kind of focus on a narrower track than what was previously possibly available. I watched Risewick's announcement video where he was talking about, previously each kind of school had a different random selection of electives depending on what was available, and now the electives at each school will be more focused on, I think, 2 to 4 paths at each academy that's more focused on STEM or business or healthcare, or there's one other that was like their 4 focus areas, I think. So.
Right. Yeah, and so I don't know. I guess if I could say, even when I'm trying to give the given out of the way, I can't help but go back to the given. Like, and so like some of the conversation was inside the post that you and I were both commenting on separately. was, so like I was referencing the German model, which I get most of my references from him because he was really good friends with our German exchange student when we were in high school and actually went over there. What, junior year? Our senior year?
Yeah.
And went over to Germany.
They do that thing where you kind of
it was right after graduating.
Oh.
You like test into a track or something, right?
Right, and it was like what would the equivalent to like our sophomore year is when like some kids are just done. Or they'll go into
yeah, I think so.
They'll go into an apprenticeship in a certain field of their choosing or whatever. They'll start an apprenticeship.
And the 865's Academy thing starts like in 9th grade this first year, and then in 10th grade they'll go into the academies. It's like that. I think they're kind of rolling it out like that, right?
Right. So the freshmen next year.
The incoming freshmen this year are the first class that's doing the academies thing.
I don't think it was so much as far as like testing out, where they're like, "Oh, sorry, you're not smart enough. You need to go work in the mines."
But it was a select, it was a chosen path.
Right. I'm assuming it was. I'd like to think that the model was, you have more kind of one-on-one time with like a guidance counselor.
Right, a little aptitude
sitting down,
test.
It's like, hey, what are you good at? What do you like?
Right. What do you want to do with your life?
Yeah, not so much as that, but yeah, essentially, yeah. What's going to make you a good German citizen? That's going to help us be good.
Right. Buy German stuff like you're supposed to. That's given. That's a known. That's a known.
Well, you touched on something like what make a good German citizen, right? Because that can be different than just a good German worker, right? A citizen has to be well-rounded. A citizen is supposed to be somebody that's smart enough to vote, right? That understands enough about politics to participate in civics and the government. So you have to understand a little bit of history. You have to understand a little bit of how government works. You have to understand a little bit of how the law works if you want to be a good citizen. Right. So, I mean, in high school, I'm not saying I had like a law course, but I had history classes and took history courses all the way through my senior year. What if I'd been in the healthcare focus? Would I have not taken the government class I took my senior year? Would I have not learned about, some of the things I learned?
Yeah, I haven't seen that structural part of it yet to see what some of the more like functional breakdown is. Because there's a lot of stuff I probably could have done in high school that I didn't do because I was in band. I was in band every year.
Yeah.
Every semester of every year I was a band kid, and I loved band, and band was the best thing that ever happened to me. And so I'm not complaining about it, nor did I think it wronged me in the grand scheme of things. But what did I forego? What did I miss? It took me 20 years to bother being a better citizen on the civic side of things.
Sure.
And could that have been installed then? Maybe. And I didn't mean to use installed, but that's a good word. I'll take it.
Jacked in and installed.
I don't know, because I think that's one of the things. That's one of the things that I struggle with most is that it's like, I can't figure out what the goal is. I've never been able to figure out what the goal is in talking to any of the school board members I talked to and talking to any of the state reps who may or may not have been on education committee but still deal with state laws regarding schools and stuff like that. County commissioners or city council, they don't count. They don't have anything to do with it, even though they'll talk about it. Mayors will do the same. But I can't figure out what the goal is and whether this is some universal goal that everybody's gotten together and decided on, or it's just kind of like, just get them out, move on. Because I do agree, like I'm a firm believer that the U.S. system is based on the old Austrian model, which is build people that can run the machines but not smart enough to know how to work them. They just need to be able to push the buttons but not be able to construct their own. Mm-hmm. And I do believe that's the way the base of this system is, and some of the stuff is struggling to get out of that. Sam disagrees.
I think I agree with that general framework. Yeah, there's a lot of very structured factory-like stuff in our education system, churning out the workers.
You live by the bell. I mean, that's what that's where the bell came from in the school.
And these academies are kind of carrying that tradition, right, is what it seems like. So very much about creating the workers of tomorrow. Ford wants to train its workers of tomorrow. So,
but again, I
had to go up to just basic classes in high school. I had to go up to Algebra 2. I don't think that's teaching me to be dumb.
Okay.
And that was the minimum at least. That's just in math alone. I mean, we still had U.S. history. That were requirements for anyone to graduate.
I acknowledge that is a fact, yes.
High schools offer AP courses.
Okay. And so when we graduated from high school, in 2000,
dumbing everybody down.
When we graduated in high school in 2000, what we taught was the future for us. future was go to college.
College, right.
Because then you
Yeah,
can be
definitely.
smart enough to actually have a job that makes money.
Go to college or you'll flip burgers.
Because the high school
So you
education...
admit that their model at that time was for you to further your education in college, and yet you still want to think that their goal was to just teach you the bare minimums.
So was there...
which one was it?
You're saying the bones of the system is that Austrian model where it's like bell to bell and very regimented. But I mean, you're definitely right that American high school allows electives and these opportunities to take art and take band, and some of those opportunities have diminished over time or more available in affluent areas and stuff like that. Yeah.
What I was required to take just to graduate.
I mean,
Like I couldn't graduate without Algebra 2.
Sure.
And I wouldn't call that basic math by any means.
No, sure.
I mean,
No,
that's just mathematics. I mean, that's not getting into science. I took chemistry.
But again, like,
failed it the first time, but I passed it the second time.
having passed algebra or not, when you got out, if you got out of high school and tried to go into any sort of career without going to college, what were your career options? Like realistically, and it's not functionally and it's not intelligence wise, but it's just functionally in the way the system was working at the time. Because to me,
you gotta have a degree to get in the door.
to me,
for the most part, yeah.
to me, a bachelor's, any further education was just a applicant pool diminisher. That's all. That's the only point. You know, like my dad said it to me 1,000 times, and my dad went to college in the fucking 70s. It's like, you're not going to get smart, you're getting the piece of paper. Mm-hmm. The only point is to have the piece of paper, because then when you go ask for the job, there's only 20 people with the piece of paper and 500 people that have the high school version of the piece of paper, and they're just going to get weeded out immediately.
Yeah, definitely. And some employers are looking at that you at least took the effort.
Okay, so I guess my point is, if they're going to teach you stuff that has no value directly out of school other than to go to a further level of education, and even that, unless you're into some sort of mathematics, algebra doesn't do much for you either. But why aren't they using that other educational time on civics or history or some sort of something that puts you as a more well-rounded citizen instead of a math class?
I was required to take civics and history just like you in high school.
And they really were bad at it because I can't remember shit.
Yeah, probably not enough. I agree with that.
But again, but
I remember one of the most important things that I've taken away from the civics class was the first day of that class. I'm sure I've mentioned it on here many times, but we took essentially the U.S. citizenship test. Everyone failed. Mm-hmm. Retook it at the end of the year. Everyone, of course, did much better, but it was that eye-opening of, this is what we ask people to come that are not Americans, that have to learn this to become Americans. And someone that is a senior in high school would not pass essentially a citizenship test. Which I know it's only lending fodder to your canon here,
but again, it's, I mean, you're not wrong in that aspect of it, but still in the original point being is that
that's where it was kind of,
if the point of school is this hours per day, this number of hours and days per year kind of thing, is what, like, everything's based on number of classroom hours and stuff like that. Why are we using it to teach classes like Algebra 2 that have real little long-term application for most people, unless that is something for you and that you go and pursue something in mathematics or engineering or whatever, then instead using those days that you're required to educate these people on things that may be more civic, history, politically minded, to make you a more well-rounded, functional, interactive citizen, and then let you focus when you can on the things that you want to follow a career path.
So you're saying put Algebra 2 in college and have high school more broad base of,
maybe I don't know. I'm just saying, like, if the goal is, like, what do we want a kid to come out of high school capable of?
Well, it seems like whether it's the thing that apparently our system is supposed to do is just keep kids busy while their parents are at work.
Well,
right? That seems like the function of it.
And realistically, algebra, so you can go be a carpenter or a plumber or some sort of.
Our algebra is actually pretty useful
trade labor. It's really what it's actually covering.
Yeah, that trigonometry stuff is pretty useful when you're trying to cut drywall and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it is.
I know. We got a carpenter working for us right now. It's like, I don't know how. He learned it all in the field, but he's sitting out there with the ruler and the pencil, and he's like drawing lines here and there, and it's like, I don't understand anything what you're doing. And then he goes in the back, cuts a couple things up, puts it in there. It's like, holy shit, that's amazing.
Right.
Can't imagine it. But anyway, point being, I think the school is ill focused at large.
At the same, how focused can they get? How do you prepare each individual student to be able to go into any field that there is out there available of employment? It's impossible.
But is that the goal?
So, I mean, they're trying to
goal?
give them the best general education.
I would think that the best goal would be to make that well-rounded citizen person, and then you go after 18. You go to college if you're doing a professional, whatever you call it, office type career, or you go to some kind of technical program if you want to be a hands-on worker. But focusing high school more on developing the civic mindedness of people seems better than than at that point focusing on getting them into the workforce earlier.
Right, and I'll switch my own argument against myself on this one, because the problem is that who controls what goes on in the classrooms, and if we're trying to build civically minded people coming out of, especially the state of Tennessee, a very strong one-party controlled state, what kind of politically minded people are we creating through the school system?
Well, you see that UT is trying to create a certain civically minded kind of people.
We're trying to push back
with
against the one that's naturally happening, or the crazy left version, or whatever the fuck.
Right.
But again, I mean, it's just in the lower
from
set.
Kindergarten on up. What are you talking about?
I mean,
the whole school system is so liberalized.
I mean, it's at some level the state legislature of the right believes as much, and they have the power and control to do something about it.
True. Yeah.
I mean, whether it's true or not, they believe it's happening enough that, or at least
those
they know for
kindergarten
political
teachers
purposes.
have those letters and numbers hanging out together. We can't allow that.
I mean, but for political purposes, at least they
There's-
know that it's worth going to bat for. Mm-hmm. And so, if we're going to say that we want this well-rounded civic population coming out of high school, but they control it, then we don't know if we want that anymore either. That's part of where we're stuck at this for me. It's like, I don't think we're producing. I don't even think we're at the point of master of none, jack of all, whatever that phrase is, or whatever, jack of all trades, master of none. Right. I don't even think we're producing that. We're producing like jack of some, master of none, and I don't know where you go from there. Mm-hmm. But then
we've definitely been struggling the past couple decades with as far as with standardized testing. Are we just teaching to do well enough on that test to not lose funding next year? Mm-hmm. And even teachers complain about this. They're spending, 25, maybe half of the year,
right? Well, you got
preparing students just for that test.
One of mine
which
is just
leads
a bad
into,
test kid.
They're not teaching them to better themselves in life. We're just teaching them to be able to do well enough on this test.
Because
do well enough on the ACT or the SAT. Or
one of mine's not a very good test taker. He's just not a good test taker. So he did very poorly on a couple of tests, and he is in a special reading class, even though he is better than his older brother reading.
Right.
But
it's like the tools, the solutions that we have aren't fitting the problems right.
Yeah.
But I don't think I question whether this academy's approach is the solution, right? Because again, it's like, what's the goal? It seems like the goal of the academies is more tech focused, work focused earlier on, and I would rather see more civic, more broad focused earlier on. I think that's kind of where we're.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I just the problem though too is that okay, so you have this well-rounded, civically minded person. What do they do?
Yeah, how do they support themselves? Right.
Yeah. And as much as we can not like the idea of building the next generation of worker bees, we still need the worker bees, mm-hmm. and the whatever we're creating needs some work to do to pay the bills. I mean, I guess there's other crazier options to play somewhere in there, but I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how those work.
Well, I mean, I don't.
We need both.
I don't think A65's academies is like a terrible idea, and it's absolutely going to be a failure. I'm just like, let's watch this thing closely, see how it plays out. Let's watch that. It isn't too focused on workers. We're not abandoning too much of the students' ability to have interesting electives and interesting experiences while they're in high school, to experiment with band, to experiment with theater and art and stuff like that, like you should be able to do, or to, spend time in a government class instead of focusing on whatever the literacy test you got to pass or whatever's coming up.
Yeah, I agree. I think
physical school plan.
It's like the academy.
I know it's in the thoughts at the moment, but
this is happening.
It's
kicked off.
Yeah, it's like the schools, I guess, are going to change what their curriculum is as the
which is something we already do on some
Yeah.
level.
One school, this is a countywide.
It's like
I have no idea what the fuck you guys are talking about.
I thought it was all 8 high schools.
There's if you go to it was knoxcountyschools.gov or whatever it is /academies. I think it pulls up the list of schools that we went
through.
through.
The first time hearing this, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
This is a new online class.
I can't spell. Come on now.
Academies.
Take your time. There it is.
Great radio content here.
I was about to say, why is this not secure?
Knox County Schools. And then...
knoxschools.org. Here we go.
Okay, there you go. And then the...
Become
there it is.
865.
The 865 Academies. Can you click on that? Or
It will not let me click on that.
Knox County Schools?
That's just a logo. That's not a hyperlink.
If you type /academies in the URL bar, I know it'll come up with the...
But again, you're trusting me to spell that word. That's where it's...
ACADEMIS.
Shh. You're making it worse.
I'm reading it off the page.
I'm not that smart. I'm just reading it
There it
out
is.
to you.
So there's the video of Ryswick talking about it.
It's Knox County Schools reimagining the high school experience.
We're getting
so
assuming
that,
I'm allowed to use
every
this.
student is successful post-graduation.
As long as we're not doing it for commercial purposes.
This is
We
transformative
are.
content. We're
We're
criticizing.
not making money.
And we were trying
What
to.
we kind of remember traditionally
big
in
money.
high
We
school
are.
is
It's transformative
to
content.
navigate
Right,
for a student when you
Commercially
come in. You know
benefiting.
you're going to take your core subjects, but kind of when you get into things like electives, it's kind of, whatever's available and whatever you want to take. And so this is really about being more intentional about your experience in high school. So part of it is that, and part of it is hooking together electives and experiences that can get you to a place where you can get a certification or you get like a depth of understanding in an area.
About the
This is going to help them better
cosmetology they're
identify
showing here is kind of
what
interesting.
they potentially want
I
to
didn't
do,
remember
as
that
well
being
as some of the
listed under
things that
the
they might
categories.
not want to do.
There's Christy.
This is going to help them graduate with a plan.
I haven't found anyone to say that this isn't a better way to have school. This isn't, teams of adults surrounded by kids who know them well and are helping them navigate life. Like that beats the traditional model every time.
This is going to make sure your student is better prepared for life after high school.
For us, a successful student will be one who enrolls in post-secondary institution, enlists and serves in our military, or is employed in a high-wage, high-demand job. And again, that's important for us that is a career, something they can do now and can still do 20, 30 years from now and be successful and contribute.
So there you go.
Okay,
There's
so
the idea.
that is what Knox County Schools' goal is.
Yeah.
Get you to college,
So
get
still
you to the
the original
military.
Or get
Get
you
you a
into a
high-paying
lucrative
job.
career. There you go. High-paying
too.
job. So
In
I
Knox
thought
County
it had the
community.
list of schools a little further down the
Sometimes
page.
I think it's just as important to learn what you don't want to do as it is to learn what you want to do. I do like this model because I think that just the collaboration and the skills and the soft skills and the connections that students make will help them in any industry.
The great byproduct is we're building this kind of learning community in and of ourselves. As one school
So it's
does
all
best
8 high
practice,
schools.
they share it with another, and they
There's
can
only
do
8 high
visits
schools
across
in
the
the county,
board to try to
I
continue
guess so,
to make the
yeah.
model stronger. So I think there are great things even being pioneers in that, but there's a great thing
Oh, I
about
didn't
being in a
realize it was
cohort to do
all-
that learning together.
As a community and as a school board and as a
First
district, we
cohort to
all want to
participate
see our
will be the
kids
Freshman
succeed.
Academy of Incoming Ninth
And I
Graders.
think anytime you can bring an entire community, not just the board, but your nonprofits, your local
Ooh, I could
businesses
get on there
and
and sell
industries
weed-related
to
products
rally around
to the
students
See how that would
to
go.
help them
Don't think you could
succeed. You're going to have great outcomes.
I have a business that's interested in helping teach kids. I mean, that's another one we could talk about tonight. There's in the complete clarity and understanding of state of Tennessee, there's a full legal bill, and actually, it's not a bad one so far.
Yeah.
It's not a good one on him.
I had to
but
break our manager's heart on that one. He was like, "Yeah, look." I was like, "I'm gonna watch this one." I was like, "That one's not gonna go anywhere." I was like, "They put
Well,
up this bill for the past
all right.
3 or 4 years.
well,
I was
let's
going to
finish the
ask, is it
school
the
stuff.
same one that's been up before?
Yeah, we'll finish the school stuff and we'll go
Free
into follow-up
cannabis
stuff.
for all." I think.
So I don't know. All 8 high schools are doing it. I missed a pinch of that segment, but
I like that they're at least kind of going into trying to individualize a little bit, kind
it
of a
seemed to
broad
be-
individualization.
Right. It seemed to be like the pitch was for your electives you can choose a more specific path. Where for your electives you can choose to go into X field, and we have a series of classes through your career that you can go that will get you to a better level graduating high school to go on and maybe go into that career or go into a further version of that. Like a nursing one could, be like a very base nursing assistant straight out of high school, or have a leg up getting into nursing school proper from the get-go.
I mean, I think there's a point that it's at 9th grade is a pretty early time to be asking kids to figure out what they want their career path to be.
You're 14. What do you want to do?
Well, as long as there's some flexibility, and I guess I don't have a problem. But like, say if you're in ninth grade and you're like, okay, I definitely want to go into STEM, and then you start going into those classes and it's not for you, right? And you're like, maybe you want to switch to business, or maybe you want to switch to healthcare or something. How hard is that to do? What if your family moves and you need to transfer and you can't go to the academy you used to be going to? Like, there seems like there's a lot of details that are going to have to be worked out, and there's not a lot of detail on this public-facing webpage, and that video didn't tell you a whole lot either.
And so I'm going to pick Central just because I picked Farragut on accident, so we'll just do Farragut.
Okay, yeah, see what it says.
Has the Academy of Business, the Academy of Engineering, Tech, and Health, and the Academy of Health and Human Sciences. It doesn't say what each academy is, other than... So the question to me would be, so like my kids are Central kids.
Yeah, so what are their options? Automotive services?
Business and design, healthcare. So two of the same ones, but what was the other one at Farragut?
It was like science and technology versus automotive services or something like that. Ferry was the other one.
Yeah, so what
engineering and technology.
Right. So are we going to have some inter-county transfer options if my kid wants to go after one of these academies?
Yeah, if you're not
available at his districted school.
Probably a form for it.
I mean, I got 2 high schools I can use at my at discretion because of my parents' address if I wanted to. But I'm assuming my parents are still zoned for where we went to high school. I know when I moved down here, it was supposed to be zoned for Farragut.
That's what I thought too when we first moved here.
You guys?
Yeah.
No, you guys don't make any sense to go to Farragut.
Well, the Farragut line, I think, is on the other side of Pellissippi down North Shore at that time.
Right.
But I want to say it was even the people down here at Rocky Hill. I think we were dropping off my little sister. And they were
There's some Farragut people.
Like, you guys might be at Farragut.
Yeah, it's weird when Farragut came online, because Farragut came online shortly before we started. It's back in the rural days of Knox County. I mean, it's crazy, like, thinking about it that way. How long have you lived here?
Moved here in 2009.
Yeah, you have no idea, bro. It's always been this big little city.
Yeah.
To you, I mean.
Yep. Yeah, it has been.
I remember going to Powell High School for a football game and band, right?
Yeah.
And I thought we were in the country. The country. Get off the interstate on a 1-lane, whatever, Emory Road, next to some field airport. Driving down some back road, whatever, end up at this little high school, do the thing. Felt like it took an hour to get there and back. Whole thing. I remember feeling like that was forever away.
Right.
And it was way out in the podunk. And I mean, it was a little bit.
Like Union County. And
yeah. But anyway, pot laws. The standard national rep has put up a full legalization. But the more likely ones is what's House Bill, what was it I sent? Do you remember the name off the top of your head?
No.
Avert your eyes, Tyler Givins. This is none of your business.
Yeah, I started to look at your chat, so then I was like, better not. I'll avert.
This one. All right. You can revert your eyes.
Oh, thanks.
Tennessee House Bill 0403 and Senate Bill 0378. Introduced by Briggs this time. I got to talk to him about it. I've talked to his staff, but I haven't gotten a schedule with him.
There was a WATE story about this that had a little bit of an interview with him.
Yeah. I mean, it's a step up from where he has been, and I think the rationalization on his side that this is not going away. You're not going to get rid of it. So let's regulate it and put a framework in place, which you're supposed to be a Republican, which means your regulations are stupid to you. So what are you doing? And I don't disagree with the premise of it. It's like the problem I have with it. Have you seen it at all?
No.
Essentially what it's going to do is it's going to produce a framework where.
Okay, I see Delta 8 and Delta 10 listed there.
Right. It's so. Standard pot, as say, is still illegal in the state of Tennessee, but all these derivatives that are floating around right now,
yeah, like semi-legal status, right, being sold in stores,
right? They're full. I mean, they're legal by federal and state law per se. They're not illegal, I guess, is the better way to put it. Just like a lot of it's like stupid stuff, like it's going to be mandated by the state to be sold over 21 or 21 plus. It's like everybody does that anyway,
right?
Mandated testing, everybody does that anyway. And it's like, okay, like I get like. I agree with the premise of what you're going after, but for the most part, the good players are doing it anyway. Now, what you're going to end up doing is making the good players pay more, and the good players who have a good customer base, those customers then therefore pay more. Mm-hmm. And really all it's going to do is strengthen the bad players, because now they're going to be cheaper for being bad players as long as they can stay under the radar and not get
they
caught.
cut the corners, skirt the rules,
right.
and they'll be able to save money.
And so really all you're going to end up doing is punishing the good players and their customers.
It happens in many other industries as well.
Okay.
It does, yeah.
I'm not trying to justify it.
I know, and so that's, and so it's like, it's a new special tax, a permitting process, and then like a set of standards and testing and stuff like that, which means that even the testing that already is getting done is going to get more expensive, because it's going to be a certain set of labs are going to be approved by the state to do testing.
Yeah, that's interesting. What's the call for that? Who's asking for that? That's my question. Who's saying we need this testing and stuff?
Yeah.
Is that in the other bill too? Is that in the full legalization bill?
I believe so. Yeah, it's some sort of it's very, very Colorado model.
Okay.
As far as I understand it, because that's one of the questions to me. Because I think the realization, I think what Briggs is saying here, and I think what Massey's told me directly, is that full legal is it's coming.
Sure.
It's going to happen.
It's been a matter of time for some time, but it does still seem like it's a matter of time.
Right. The one that killed me the most was the quote from, I think it was Speaker Sexton. He hasn't signed off on anything yet. He wants to talk to some more people, including law enforcement. It's like, what the fuck do you think law enforcement's going to say? They hate it.
That's like half their money is from drug busts.
Right. Plus, all the cops hate it because they don't get any good weed.
Takes away their
free. Or they have to go
stashes,
buy
right?
the good weed.
Right.
They can't take it.
Yeah, they can't leave it in the back of their patrol car with the blow up doll anymore.
Oh, speaking of Tennessee cops, what about that one chick from where was it?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It was such a meme it was such a fun meme.
It was, it was one of those things where like there was waves of the meme too. There was like the first wave, and it's a picture of all of them and talking about it, and then you got the I saw a kind of feminist backlash that was like, why aren't you calling out the men as much as the woman, and so all kinds of things.
That's a good point.
Yeah, sure.
Point.
I mean, they all.
My favorite was Thomas the Train with her face.
Oh my gosh!
Damn it, that one got me.
I didn't see any of these memes. I don't know. I'm not in the right circles.
It was good. What was
I saw a story about it.
Yeah, where was it? Do you remember?
Somewhere in Western Tennessee, I think. I don't remember exactly.
I thought it was somewhere around Nashville.
I mean, I don't personally. I don't really see what the big deal is. Like,
well, I mean, it's
you're doing it on the clock. That's rude.
Right. That's my main issue.
That's the only thing that bothers me about it.
And there's some
I think that was the main pushback.
Any kind of workplace sexual relationships, especially on the clock. I feel like it's questionable.
Yeah, but if you want to go home, hang out with your husband and 5 coworkers and fuck everybody.
I honestly don't have a problem with that. Yeah.
I don't have an issue with it.
It's the violence and the harassment that I have a problem with. It's not the who they.
There's probably some violence going on in there.
Yeah. Well, if it's consensual between adults. The police. What is the safe word if you're the police?
Yeah. Oh, there's a good racist joke in there somewhere. And I'm just
my
not
goodness!
Let's
let that one lie.
Alone. Anyway, back to pot laws. So I don't know, but the thing about this 403 that the real subtext that is there to me is that this is the framework to just add Delta 9 proper and just leave it how it is. Because that's the interesting, like the most interesting thing about pot law to me is that I'm in a unique position where I make a lot of money off of pot adjacent, and full legal in the state would be very damaging to my bottom line.
Well, you wouldn't just slide over and transition into selling?
Yes, but everybody and their fucking brother's going to get on that game.
Well, of course, I thought that was the whole point of having a CBD store right now, was to be positioned for when it becomes legal.
Maybe, but the problem is that every Tom, Dick, and Harry, depending on how the state sets it up, but every Tom, Dick, and Harry is going to get in the game. That's what CBD did originally anyway.
Well, and vape shops, too. I mean, there used to be 4 vape shops less than a mile from my house.
Right. I tell the story all the time. It's like when we opened our original store, we were number 8 in Knox County. When we opened our first attempt at a second store, that was number 53. Wow. And it settled back down. And when we did our second attempt at a second store, that was number 47 or 48. And so, like, right at 50 is the number that Knox County can handle. And then the CBD thing came in, and you had all these different CBD Flavor Nights come in. They all came in, and they went on. And so, yes, depending on how it's set up, yes, we would transition into adding that as part of our catalog, but we go through another version of this. But the My concern with this one is this is where the big money comes into play, because you're already seeing it in some of the big states where the pot consolidation in big states is getting pretty serious. And I don't know if I can fight that. Now, in the free market version of the world, I guess I don't have a choice. I should. But, in the selfish, I'm going to play the card that's in front of me. Again, and philosophically, I think pot should be legal. And so, on a political and philosophical standpoint, I'm going to advocate that we should go full legal in the state, and I'll just have to figure out how to do the best I can in the new world that exists and how that affects my business as it stands. But, it's just a...
But that sounds consistent with the philosophy that you've voiced otherwise. I appreciate that.
But I think the consolidation is the biggest thing that scares me about it. Because I think you're going to have some big player that's big in Colorado or whatever, just going to come plop down, buy a bunch of acreage, do all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Have a single line, farm to processing to retail that I just can't compete with.
Right. It's a weakness of our antitrust laws. That's hardly anything to do with pot.
And I have to survive that initial onslaught, and that's really the one that's truly the one that concerns me the most. That initial onslaught, because there's going to be so many people that jump in on it.
Right. It'll just be hard, just because the market will be so saturated. So it's like we need a con law for pot shops. It's like, here, you need a certificate of need.
My fear, that's the worst option though to me is that they go
like
legal.
Liquor stores and
they go legal.
Allow so many licenses.
Right, only put 20 licenses out in the state.
Right.
And if you don't get one of the 20, well, fuck you.
Right.
That's what's happened in legal states as far as, I guess, like producing. They've only allowed so many permits to be able to be a certified grower in that state.
And I mean, and liquor law in the state is still like that. Like you can't, like you as an individual can own 2 liquor stores, period. Any LLC, any corporation, anything like that you are listed on, that counts. So right now, Total Wine is lobbying hard in the state to try to change that, because Total wants to have, I think they would have 3 in Knox County.
How many locations do they have in the state?
They have in Nashville and Knoxville.
So just 2.
Right.
Wow.
Because that's all they can.
That's all they can
currently.
Okay.
But they want to have Memphis.
So if they wanted to have Memphis,
they
can't do it.
They want to have 6 in Nashville. They want to have 2 or 3 in Knox County. That's their goal, but they can't because of the way the law's set. And I don't know. There's part of me that I like my mom and pop liquor stores and I don't want them to go away, but at the same time, I can't get mad at I pay $2, $4,
pay
$5
less. The
a
selection's
bottle,
really good.
That selection is obnoxiously good.
Yeah,
it's hard to make a decision in that place.
Oh man, I before the Total Wine was here, I used to tell people all the time about this legendary thing called Total Wine, where you could just walk in and get a keg any day of the week, and it'd probably be a pretty good beer.
Yeah, it's funny. I go in there, and I do some work there every once in a while, and it's like you just see people looking around, just lost.
Yeah.
It's like you're looking for something in particular. It's like, no. It's like, well, you're never going to find it then.
That's right. Yeah, I came in here for a Cabernet, and there's an entire wall of them. So, yeah, it's going to take me a minute.
Yeah, I don't know. I had an idea, but I lost it.
Right.
I just did beer stuff. It's crazy. It's fun. It's neat. It's cool.
Yeah.
I'm not mad about it, except for my work part of it, because my job sucks. But nobody that I work with listens, so I don't have to worry about it. But yeah, I think it's unfortunate that the one thing that I've argued, and I told Massey this a couple times I've had her on here. It's like, you agree that it's inevitable, so what are we waiting on? Mm-hmm. All we're doing is waiting until Kentucky and Alabama and Georgia legalizes, and we realize how many people are driving over there to buy it, and we go, holy shit, we're losing millions and millions and millions of dollars every year to Georgia and Kentucky and elsewhere that our citizens will be paying in taxes here, and that's that. But I'm actually kind of excited about the idea of this part in the 403 that's just a 5% special sales tax on it. And so it'll be normal sales tax.
$500 yearly license.
Yeah.
That's not too bad.
But 5% sales tax on it on top of a regular sales tax. And so regular sales tax does what regular sales tax does. They have the special 5% that goes wherever it goes. Hasn't clarified where that's going yet, because I'm sure I'll complain about where it's going. Because they're going to say it's going to go to Department of Agriculture to oversee all this kind of shit, and it's like, you only have to oversee it because you're asking to oversee it because we're doing it ourselves anyway.
Right. Yeah.
And that, again, that's one of those things that just bothers me in general. It's like, I don't, like you said, who is asking for this? And I would argue that if there's any group that hates, it's probably alcohol. Mm-hmm. So the big booze in Tennessee are probably some of the ones
that they would just throw stumbling blocks at it,
right,
or
to do some damages, because they're the ones that are probably most likely to lose. Big Pharma might not like it either.
Yeah, I can see that too.
I don't know how much Big Pharma is pushing specifically in the state of Tennessee for a specific set of laws or anything like that, but they might be. I mean,
I would assume in Big Pharma there's enough players. There's probably players on both sides.
Yeah,
I don't
know.
depending on how much they own. And
because that's one of the things that's always the heel that is pod is that you can't patent it. Mm-hmm. You can't have you could maybe try to patent a strain, maybe. But even that, I don't know if you could get away with, because like I don't think you could own the rights to beefsteak tomatoes. You know, you can have beefsteaks that you produce and the way that you produce them and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, how long is it going to take Monsanto to make GMO pot, though, that they're copywriting? And then,
I mean, pot is already super GMO anyway. Like, it's been GMO for decades.
I mean, you can copyright recipes, can you not?
Sure. But it's not really a copyright worth having. So, like, I remember this is from business school at University of Tennessee. Has some college business. I don't think it was called back then. But you can, like, KFC's, whatever, 11 herbs and spices, their special recipe, is not copywritten. Because if it's copywritten, it's public knowledge. And so all you have to do is add a pinch of X, and it's not that recipe anymore.
Add 1 grain of salt.
Right. It's not that recipe anymore, but it's
flavorless,
exactly the same, right?
pinch of cornmeal or something.
Yeah. And so that's the game at play in recipes, at least.
Mm-hmm. Which, rather keep it a secret.
But you can copyright a formula. Go on to the big pharma angle, which I don't know how that works, because I don't know how to read a formula per se, but I'm sure people that are in the game could read it. And
yeah, it's all interesting stuff. And there's like difference between copyrights and patents, and they have different terms of length, and I feel like you reformulate. It's like that's the insulin problem, right? Is they keep reformulating it so it's slightly different, so they get a new patent on it, so they can charge more for longer. Yeah. That's the idea there.
Right, but shouldn't it be that if the old one comes off of patent, then I could produce the old one in my basement with the proper technology and tools and whatnot?
Yeah, I don't understand all of that stuff.
Yeah, I don't get it either.
Yes, people just trying to recoup their R&D costs.
Yeah, people trying to maximize profit too.
So,
right?
I get it to an extent. I mean, it did cost you a lot of money to research and do that.
If that is true, I will get on board. But there's a lot of them that are grants that are...
Right. Most basic research is performed under federal grant money. Like very first attempts to try this compound to do X, Y, and Z. It's like usually the companies that come in and get those final drug patents really do the...
they turn the Viagra from just a white pill to a blue pill.
Well, they do a lot of safety testing and stuff like that. There's a lot more testing to put it through, but like the very early testing, like if you're testing stuff that's probably going to fail and it's not likely to work and it's very experimental, all that stuff's happening at universities under grant money. It's not necessarily going, Pfizer's not doing basic research.
Right, like 90% of the mRNA
so I think it's
research.
Yeah, it was all public. Yeah,
it was all publicly done, and that's just that last 3 feet of the race or whatever.
And yet those people, they get the patented and continue to sell us these boosters for however much they're charging the government to give them to us or whatever.
So I think a lot of the laws regarding that, I think, give them like a year or two essentially of exclusivity. They're like, okay, you spent money on that, like, all right, you get the first 2 years. After that, like, anybody can make a generic of what you've made.
It's supposed to be limited, but there's like ways that the companies know how to manipulate the system and extend things for longer. But things certainly have fallen out and become generic and stuff.
Everyone
like
figures
that.
out ways to game the system.
Right.
That's one we think about, like one big pushback with regulation. A lot of people hate regulation. It's like, regulation wouldn't be there if we weren't so damn cunning.
Right. So
I don't think people want to necessarily push regulation, but eventually people just try to find little ins and outs, and it's like, well, fuck, all right, no, you
but
can't
that same
do that
level
either.
of cunning figures out how to work within the bounds of the regulation to be cunning around it anyway, which is
constantly evolve. Well, look at like Formula One racing. The rules change every year because whatever the team did to win last year, they wanted to do something new and interesting this year. So you change the rules to keep it competitive, and competition is supposed to be a good thing, right? So sometimes you need to change the rules a little bit after somebody figures out all the loopholes. Well, that's not what we intended. Let's change the rules a little bit, make it competitive again.
Right. It can cut both ways.
Right.
I'm trying to think. I'm thinking on that analogy for a second. But if the point of racing is to get from point A to point B fastest,
no, the point of racing is to be entertaining to the crowd.
Okay, well, but that's a different goal, and that's fair, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but that being the goal of that specific thing versus the broader goal that we're talking about here is a little bit different. Is all I was trying to get at.
It depends on whose goal.
Right.
I mean, sometimes that driver is just trying to make money for whoever his fucking sponsors are. Like, if I do good, my sponsors are going to pay me a hell of a lot more
Some guys just
money.
want to go fast, man.
And some people just want to go fast.
Did we just get a Days of Thunder reference? I feel like we got real close to it. There's got to
It
be.
was close, I think. I wasn't quite off.
I'm gonna say it was. Nobody's seen the movie recently.
It's
enough
been a
to
while,
call us
so I
out for
don't
being
remember the
wrong.
quote
Oh,
exactly.
never, sorry, I was about to make a Top Gun reference and not a
Got a need.
Got a need?
Need
Yeah.
for Speed.
All right,
It's
so
like, never mind, hold on.
I got to save a good bit of time for this last one.
All right.
I should have prepped you because we did talk about stuff we were going to talk about, which some of it we did. Some of the con law stuff I talked about. So it's the violence thing, right? All right, so
The violence thing?
the violence thing.
This was a Facebook debate. that
Okay,
kinda
so
popped up.
I think the first part of it is that I didn't catch the context. So tell us your post,
Sure.
and I'll tell you
give it
my
some
reaction
context.
and then my understanding of getting the context as it went. as
Okay,
the
so
conversation goes.
my post was just a simple Facebook post. I said property damage is not violence. So that was in response to a whole bunch of headlines coming out of Atlanta after the forest offender was shot by police. It was like a week and a half ago, a couple weeks ago. But there's still not a lot of details known about that. But a lot of media coverage said protests turn violent. Like you saw that term over and over again, referring to the protesters. They burned a cop car, smashed a couple windows on a Wells Fargo. Obviously, not all the protesters in it. Some individual actors in the protest did things, caused damage. I think 6 people got arrested. Not clear if those were the people who burned the cop car or not. But what I was taking issue with is that when you call something violence that's just damage of property, and that's directly in comparison to the violence that was taking a human life, right? So it kind of it creates an equivalency there that I think is a little bit irresponsible on the part of the media to say, protests turn violent is a cop car getting burned versus police, turning violent would be killing a person.
Because my initial reaction was clearly that I didn't understand the context. Was my original statement was there a beginning of this joke? Is this a punchline to a joke that I didn't see? Because my gut reaction was to wholly disagree with the premise. Because there's a whole bunch of parts and pieces. And somebody tried to argue with me, showing me Webster's definitions, which, in my understanding of how commas work, agreed with my stance in that, it was talking about things and stuff. I'd have to look up the definitions again.
You have to look at it exactly. But yeah, it was definitely questionable, or like it did have the word thing in there, and like it was like doing harm to someone or something. And
right, but so somebody through the conversation made a good point of like, really the question is how you're allowed to respond to it. Now, if we're going to say that property damage is not violence, then that is asserting that you cannot respond with violence to something that isn't violence. Theoretically, I guess is the kind of the idea that we're floating around. Is that
well? It's like the degrees of violence or degrees of harshness, right? Degrees of pain, like killing a human being is obviously different than destroying a piece of property, and we have different words for it, right? There's one's murder and one's vandalism or property damage. And you can cause somebody damage in a way that's not necessarily violent, right? You can have accidental damages and stuff like that. So property damage doesn't have to be inherently a violent act, but I think there's like connotations of that word violent, right? When you hear violent, you think of pain and suffering for someone, right? I feel like. I mean, you can also use it as just like
that dude really liked his car,
right, exactly.
He's in pain that he lost his vehicle,
right? So what?
Not that he wouldn't get an exact match later, but whatever.
Right. So what is violence, right? So I think I pulled up like the World Health Organization definition that was pretty good about saying violence is basically when you're trying to cause harm to a person. Either when it could be economically, so it could potentially some kind of property damage could be harm, right? If you go burn somebody's subsistence crops, right? That seems pretty violent.
Because that was where like I think that's where the conversation turned funny, because everybody was throwing out these different examples of would you count that or would you count that or would you count this or that.
Right.
I threw some bad ones out that I'll admit that if I'd spent a little bit more time prepping, it might not have used the examples that I did.
Sure, that was good. What was good about the debate, though, and what I was trying to get at with that post too, is like let's talk about what these words mean. But
I think one of the things at play that came to the fore as I was reading and talking and doing stuff with other people is that like there's this weird assumption to me about what do we do about said nonviolent action, right? How do we handle that? Because that's really what everybody's doing with their weird hypotheticals. Somebody, I can't remember who it was, but the great line was like, I think it's hilarious that we as Americans are sitting here thinking up all these different theoretical ways about how to kill each other and whether that counts as violence or not. And it was a really great quote, but it got me thinking about it because it was well said, and it was like, well, what do we do? Because the real answer to me is like, okay, so like stupid, generic, hypothetical. We're sitting here doing this, and all of a sudden we hear some thunks outside. We go outside, and two random kids are just ball batting the shit out of Tyler's car. And we go outside, hey, what the fuck are you doing? So the violence or not violence that we're going to call the destruction of your vehicle, but what is the response to, and how do we handle said response?
Sure. Well, that's already a complicated situation to unwrap because my vehicles are insured, and there are laws that I can sue them civilly, and there are a lot of structures in place that prevent that from going to a more violent conflict, right? That's what we have these civic rules to prevent violence.
But even in the structure that sits, that would be the quote normal reaction would be you call the police.
Sure.
Because they're going to go investigate. But the problem that I have is that in my outlook on the police, what the police do is violence. 90% of their job is violence. They kidnap and they hurt people.
Right.
That's what they do.
I think about when I would call the police arrest people. That's what they do.
I know he doesn't like it when I call arresting kidnapping.
Yeah,
it's legal kidnapping.
Sure.
Meaning it's
the terms are interchangeable in my head. I didn't even hear them differently. But yeah, I mean that is the state has the monopoly of violence, and it's exercised through the police. That's just a fact. That's the way our legal system is set up. Police are allowed to use force in a way that regular citizens are not.
Right. And so, I guess my whole argument and my ridiculous hypotheticals that I was trying to throw in there is why can't I just do it myself? If that's what we're going to do anyway.
So I was about to say, I've been meaning to look up what exactly, at least I'm assuming it's different from state to state as far as citizens arrest. Of when and what instance can you do and what can you do.
Right.
I think usually, from what little
you should just detain.
Well, I think it's just like you have extreme liability. Like you don't have any of the...
I know in Georgia, you have to bear witness to the crime personally, because that was that whole thing with
Ahmaud Arbery.
The Arbery case, because the two guys that were trying to citizens arrest him and ended up shooting him said they were doing it
under suspicion. Basically.
Yeah, that was probably not the most solid citizens arrest claim in the history of citizens arrest.
I know that part in Georgia law.
Right? Yeah, you learned that. Yeah. Yes, that's one thing about rules and regulations and lessons is that they're often written in blood, right?
Yeah.
So
I just think I as the conversation went, I understood a little bit where you're coming from, but I still think it brought up a lot of interesting conversations about how we interact with each other as people, and the idea that I'm not allowed to defend my stuff kind of bothers me. I'm not okay with just saying, oh, well, let me hand off my violent capabilities to the state to do it for me.
Right. And also, but in our current social contract under the laws we've got very specific case where you're allowed to have self-defense, right? And that's an affirmative defense in our law. And as it's been a while since I took my firearm, handgun, self-defense course or whatever that taught me all that stuff. But it's basically you can only use lethal force firearms in protection of innocent life. So it can be your life or somebody else's life, but it has to be somebody who's not in the commission of a crime or something like that, right? They're not the instigator.
Right.
That's your best affirmative self-defense, right? So it's not in defense of your car or in defense of, even your dog, I guess. It's probably supposed to be only in defense of people. I don't know what the exact legal standards around that are. But if I go outside and I see somebody smashing my car with a baseball bat, what I'm supposed to do is not engage, right? I'm not supposed to protect that piece of property. And personally, I wouldn't want to risk my life to protect my car, right? I don't care about it that much. It is insured. There's some deductible I'll have to pay, but it's just a thing and it's replaceable. Even if the people smashing my car, I wouldn't want to shoot them. That's still a human life. That's still more valuable than my vehicle.
Right.
And if it was a government vehicle and the people smashing it were smashing it because of something the government had done, then I think that's even further removed from violence because it's not even my personal car. It's I have my car. It's insured. That reduces some of the violence a little bit. But a government car, it's not even, the car doesn't belong to anybody. It's not their only vehicle. It's not their sole means of providing for their family. It's a piece of government property that's at least partially owned by the person hitting it with the baseball bat. So it's an entirely different animal to me.
But some of that, I mean, in legal standards, it goes to your perception.
Yeah.
To where even if you were outside and like maybe you just walk up to talk to them and all of a sudden they raised the bat and you happen to be armed, if you in that moment thought that he was getting ready to swing,
well, because that was
you have justifiable right to shoot them.
I could defend myself.
In that moment,
yeah.
if you could prove to a court that you felt your life was threatened.
Absolutely. Well, see, and that's what I'm saying is I would hate to even be in that situation. Right. So maybe at different points in my life when I was younger, I was a little more hot-headed and I thought guns were cooler and stuff like that. I'm a gun owner. I still like guns. But there was a time in my life where I'm like, yeah, guns are cool, and I feel a little bit differently about them now than I used to.
Respect it more than admire it.
Yes, exactly. But, you know, I wouldn't want to shoot somebody for damaging my car. I wouldn't want to shoot somebody for burning my house down because I have to live with that for the rest of my life, that I ended a life over something that is replaceable. You know, inconvenient to replace, sure. Life is irreplaceable in a way that no piece of property is that irreplaceable.
Right. I remember seeing a case out of Texas where there was an older gentleman that saw his neighbor's house getting broken into, called 911, so attempted to kind of do the right thing. Mm-hmm. But then instead he wanted to go after him. Even the 911 operator was like, do not go after them. Like, police are on their way. He still went out, shot the guy in the back that was like carrying a TV out of his neighbor's house, and was lauded as a hero.
Yeah, but
for saving his neighbor's TV.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm sorry. Like,
probably dropped it and broke it in the process.
A death sentence,
exactly.
Theft is not death sentence.
Seems disproportional.
Even grand theft is not a death sentence.
What's grand theft? Car?
What else over a certain value.
Yeah, I think it's like over 10, 15
taking
grand,
a lot of
something
stuff.
like that. Yeah.
Even that's not
theft to grand theft. Yeah, it's a monetary value.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't hand out the death penalty a lot
auto.
anymore. Some states don't do it at all, but we certainly don't do it for
that truck bomber or that truck dude in New York's getting it.
Yeah.
What?
I don't know. Some dude rented a Home Depot truck.
It's like, they found
ran
it with
a bunch of people over
explosives.
the bike.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Just driving down the bike path.
That's right. I forgot about that one.
Yeah, it was from 2017. Mm-hmm. That's when it happened. But the verdict came out yesterday, day before.
I'll remember that because I started looking at bollards a lot harder right after. You know, they put those bollards in front of sidewalk paths and stuff to keep vehicles off of them. I started looking at how thick they were a lot more often. That's the only reason I remember that one.
Notice how that was interesting. Go back to the school things. Like they redid the whole front of the school and put a bunch of those in. And I was like it's a big to do. And it's like, what?
It's just one of those weird things. Like we didn't think we needed it. We were like, apparently people are thinking about driving into buildings now. So shit, I guess we got to start putting some shit to keep people from driving into the front of the fucking building.
That's wild, man.
Yeah.
It seems like the con law, though. It seems like a Band-Aid on a bad system.
I think because I think that goes into a lot of the stuff. Like I
was trying to bring it full circle.
Like just like the drug law stuff we're talking about in general and stuff like that. It's like we're not discussing what the problem is with people. The problem is with people. What's wrong with people? Why are they trying to get out? What are they escaping from? What have we created that is so fucking awful? That they want to do something like go shoot up a school and then get a shootout with the cops and make sure they die in the process.
Well, what's easier, trying to figure out a myriad of possible problems that the general population has, or like doing a smaller Band-Aid fix of putting 10 concrete poles in front of an entranceway?
Sure. What's easier? You're right. You're 100% right. What's easier?
Okay. Well, the problem is when we only put the bollards up.
Right.
That's the problem. So.
Which is
and there's been I think a lot of it, comes down to we're finally coming around to the lack of kind of like mental health advocacy. That the longest time it's just like, well, just pick yourself up by the bootstraps. You need to go talk to someone.
It does seem like some of that stigma.
I think the stigma has dropped, right?
And
I think just normal.
I mean, even like PTSD has finally started to become like normalized. For the longest time, it's just like toughen up. You were in the Army, right? Well, you just need to be tougher.
Well, and I think acknowledging that
shit.
Kids can suffer that trauma too. Like we got,
right.
And even kids that didn't experience a school shooting but were somewhat adjacent to one or nearby school districts, they're all traumatized. Well, the kids
an issue with traumatization.
The kids at Austin East, man, they're traumatized by what happened to Anthony over there. Whether justified or not. I mean, shooting happening in your school like that's going to be traumatizing. So.
Yeah, I mean, even students are admitting now that these constant active shooter drills.
Oh gosh, yeah, that'll drive me crazy.
Giving them PTSD.
Yeah.
I read about one the other day. I can't remember what state that it was done in, but it was done as they're generally done as a surprise. I mean, they're not going to tell you they're doing a tornado drill or whatever. Mm-hmm. But apparently, like the cops even showed up, and students were like texting their parents, like thinking that they're like somebody's here, they're locking the door. Like shit's going down. I love
feel
you.
Like I remember tornado drills being announced.
Sometimes. I remember both ways.
So, I think that is wild that they're doing surprise active shooter drills. And
I want to say, like, and this one, like, the police actually showed up and were, like, in the hallways, which led the students even that much more to think something was going on.
That machismo of our police departments, I think, is part of the problem.
Yeah, essentially, put children that young in that mentality of, like, I'm about to die, I'm about to die, I'm about to die.
Right. It's traumatizing.
Right.
So... And the question is, like,
we're preparing you.
Does it do any good, though? That's what the question is, right? So they're doing this stuff to kids. We know it's starting to have these negative effects. Where are the positive effects? Has it?
It can go both ways.
You can't. I don't know if you can prove that.
I don't know if you can do it with children, but I mean,
yes, you can. Actually, I take that back. You could. I mean, do we think Uvalde had done any shooter drills?
But I mean, with like police, personal security.
I've done in Uvalde. You think they didn't do any?
No, they definitely did. That was part of the story, is that they had done active shooter. The police department had done active shooter training within the past few months or something.
But the schools have or haven't.
I mean, they may had. I just know. I know the police department.
I would assume that they had.
Right.
And so to say,
they have some policy in place because the teacher talked about like locking the door.
Yeah, they did. They locked the doors. They secured the
areas.
Yeah, it seemed like they had procedures. It's just, gosh, so many things in that tragedy. I'm thinking about
definitely started to be more lax from what they were. We were in school.
I don't remember. Like we were post Columbine, and I don't remember anything getting ridiculous. No. We also have this stupid campus that we have 57 outbuildings and 35 doors that you can go in and out of all the time.
Dress code changes. That was it. There was something about like tucking shirts in that you couldn't have like shirts like untucked.
I guess you couldn't wear trench coats anymore.
Yeah, you couldn't wear trench coats anymore. Yeah.
That was when like wallet chains were big, and like your wallet chain could only be like 12 inches long or whatever, because people had the ones like going down to the fucking floor.
I still like mine turned into a keychain. Mine's only like 4 inches long or whatever. I still have that. I still use that. That is my regular keychain all the time. I just realized that is a 20-year-old little thing that I carry every fucking day.
And that's good. That's good. You didn't create any waste for 20 years.
Yeah. Well, I did lose like the 12 inches that I had to cut off because I had to get within the length. But
I had a couple people try to give me shit. Actually, like I put mine on a little pocket watch, and people were like, "Oh, you're trying to be cool. You got the wallet chain like everybody else." I'm like, "No, motherfucker, I got a pocket watch."
That's right. Even cooler.
Yeah.
Did you tip your top hat when you?
I was fucking steampunk before anybody.
Yeah. You just had of your top.
But I don't know. Like so, I think the reality is I don't think that any of these Band-Aids are doing anything.
Yeah.
I think that's the point of what we're kind of floating around here. Mm-hmm. Is that I think it's just we're applying the Band-Aid and that pacifies people for long enough until something else happens, and then we apply a new Band-Aid. I think go ahead.
Some actions you're not going to get results until you try them, so it's kind of that you're in that weird situation.
You can't prove the negative, right? I get it. Some actions.
Well, it's like with these 8-6 Fans Academies.
Right.
They're rolling it out.
After the fact, it's like,
we'll see how it
what
goes.
more could we have done? So we've kind of tended more to kind of precautionary measures.
Right.
And trying to prevent certain things.
But I think this thing, and I think some of the school stuff, I think this part of the school stuff, this other part of the school stuff, the war on drugs stuff, I think there's a ton of this stuff that all boils down to the same thing. Right. It's just, it's too big, it's too hard. It's complicated. That's the word of the show. I forgot.
I mean, active shooter drills, I don't want to equate them too much to tornado drills, but I mean, I can't agree with the idea of a tornado drill of, when you're not really expecting it, like, oh shit, there's a tornado, like, you don't want to be so panicked that you don't know what you need to be doing in that situation.
Right.
One thing I've read about, just different, like, personal security to where, if you're in that kind of protective role where you're trying to be hyper vigilant, at the same time, they also have training of kind of desensitization, like even the Secret Service. I've read some, where they're doing their training and they literally have someone come from around the corner and shoot like it's like a little like paintball gun, basically.
Starter pistols.
But it gets you
do some push-ups. And they make them do exercises before the drills and stuff like that. Stress drills,
yeah, stress drills, basically.
Yeah, and then make you.
But
react
at the same
to
time,
scenario.
asking children to do that.
Right,
is it doing more good or more harm?
I mean, you think about like the nuclear drills, get under your desk and all that stuff. Maybe some of that stuff was useful, but that also traumatized people. There were knock-on effects of that, and people definitely you can see it in our pop culture that comes out of that, right? The art that comes away from it and stuff like that.
But I think that's a good analogy. But I think that's a good analogy, though, is that like if an A-bomb dropped on Oak Ridge, sitting under my desk ain't doing shit.
Right, and it's like, who did it save? So these active shooter drills, are they saving anybody?
It's security theater to make mom and dad feel like they're doing something, but it's not actually addressing anything. but it's at least putting the show on so that you feel better about it.
I feel that way about so much of our security measures,
Sure.
so much security theater,
Right.
versus actual.
I mean, I think it's, I think that's, I think the, it goes back to that lack of education to not see that as theater instead of actually a real solution to anything, and we accept that and we vote accordingly because we think X, Y, or Z is going to do better at securing our livelihoods and whatnot. And I think that's, I think all of it always ends up going back to education, because I think education fixes a lot of the abuse problems, whether it's drug or sex or whatever abuse problems that people have, and that the escapism that I think is probably the biggest piece of rot in our society is escapism. Is I don't want to do this because this is real life and it sucks and it's hard. And there's nothing good that's ever going to come, so I'm going to bury it in the bottom of a bottle or the end of a syringe or whatever the fuck it is.
Or 6,000 TikTok videos a day or whatever the new thing is.
Yeah, and I mean, good God, social media is good at it. They're really good.
Oh, yeah. It's real good at that. The doom scrolling and the dopamine spikes.
I'm a junkie, and I know it, and I still do it. I'm sitting there looking at it, like, I've been sitting here for 20 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
I realized I finished pooping 25 minutes ago, and I'm still sitting here.
Catch myself all the time.
My foot falls asleep, but I can't stand up now, and so I guess you guys scroll some more. Son of a bitch. I can't handle this. It's too much. But I don't know. Like, I'm excited. I think parts and pieces of the big picture nationally, politically, I think another Biden-Trump rematch is going to be so bad, but I think it's going to continue to illustrate how fucking stupid this thing is.
I was thinking the other day, I'm almost kind of hoping that this whole classified document shit maybe just kind of null and void most people's idea, and maybe they'll both just sit this shit out.
And it might kick Pence out, too, which would be awesome.
Boy, that'd be
Pence
good to get a reset all across the top.
I don't think Pence has much of a chance.
I don't think he did before. I mean, I think he might have a swing with Trump wasn't in the way, but I still get DeSantis would run away with it if it was DeSantis Pence. But I mean, the hard right, or at least the evangelical and pro-life right, loves them some Pence, and that's not a bad.
It's the battle of the rabid bases.
That's not a small block to ignore.
The next Republican primary
shrinking.
It's going to be very interesting.
I don't think.
But are they voters? I guess is the real question.
I don't think Biden's in any threat of
the 20% of people that go out and vote. It's kind of hard to figure out.
It's true. I don't think Biden's in any real specific threat of losing his chance to get the nomination.
Yeah, I don't know who would be nominated against him.
I hope.
Buttigieg. I don't think he should. I'm just saying. I think there was a Connecticut.
They gave him a cabinet position,
out,
right? Didn't they? The Buttigieg was like a director of transportation or something.
Yeah, Secretary of
Transportation.
You've seen how well the flight plans have been going for everybody.
Yeah,
how easy
it's real good.
Travel for the holidays.
Logistics around the country are just great.
Fantastic.
Yeah, because he controls Southwest Airlines logistics.
Of course he does. He's responsible for them not maintaining their planes now that he's been transportation secretary for 2.5 years.
No, it was computer failure, I thought.
Oh, is that what it was?
There was one of the big airplane recencies, and it was somehow like somebody had went in the back end and like changed some database or tried to do an update and fuck some shit up.
I do remember reading something like
I think there was a couple like
really
major computer system breakdowns recently.
I mean, he does have some responsibility with like not getting refunds to customers. Like he has some efforts. That's part of this.
I think he actually initiated investigations into it to make sure that they were paying back. Could be wrong.
Okay. I mean, yeah, he has. He's done a little bit. I'm not saying he hasn't done anything. I don't think he's done a good job of it. That's all I'm saying. In totality.
Could do better.
Sure.
He just hadn't spent enough time in the wine cave.
Yeah. Go back to South Bend, watch a football game, do whatever he does. I mean, that's the thing. Is like, what's the bench for the Democrats? There is no bench for the Democrats either. Then that's the problem. Like in the grand scheme of things, we are inevitably down a path of a Trump-Biden rematch. And I can't think of nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. I've said it a couple weeks ago. Like I think like ardent hardcore Trump supporters would be like, yeah, I want that because I think we could beat him this time.
I think Cory Booker would do well. He did pretty well in the last primaries.
The 25 actual Biden supporters, not the 170 million or whatever. There were anybody with Trump.
Right.
Those will still vote for Biden, but
the Democrats are again going to give them anybody but Trump, which is Biden.
Right. I mean, that's the campaign, and it's like I don't disagree with that as a good strategy.
I mean, it seems like the safest bet, yeah.
But I mean, it's not there's no affirmative it's not an affirmative strategy. It's not that.
Right.
Which is not abnormal. But that's what our politics
it doesn't
has been for
move
20
us
years.
toward any goals. It just is a can-kicking election.
Right. And I don't want to wait another.
What do you think? Like this fall, we'll really start kind of kicking up the campaign? Like, how long do we have before Biden does bad enough to where enough people turn on him? Like, yeah, you just retire.
I don't know.
Is
again,
this
that's
fall that they really start cranking up? I guess as far as campaigning.
I mean, yeah, I think this summer, fall is when we'll start getting a real feel.
Voting for November of 24.
Yeah, I think this summer is when we'll start getting like the real feel of who's actually really a player and who's just kind of discussing and putting exploratory committees together or whatever.
That's I love that some people are finally starting to like show about our fucked up political system. That it's like a year and a half, 2-year process of elections and campaigning.
Yeah. Oh, did you see Pelosi sold like $3 million of Google on Monday?
Ooh.
And then
What?
And then like a day.
How much money did she make on it?
I don't know how much she bought it for in the first place, but then like a day later is when the FCC comes out and says they're actually filing lawsuit against Google for monopolistic behaviors.
That happens all the time, man.
So it's amazing.
It's like
how did she,
there was the massive COVID sell-off too, right?
She couldn't have known. Like, why would she know anything other than it's just, you know what? I feel like selling some Google today.
Right.
$3 million worth.
Just a coincidence. Yeah.
That's what I do. I just sell $3 million worth of stuff just on a whim.
Yeah, me too. Yep.
I don't think the general public would have to dig that far to find out some of this stuff.
I'd be curious of all the other people who own Google, how many shares of Google got sold on that on the couple days preceding the official lawsuit filing from the FCC.
Well, there are lots of
Has it already
social
dropped
media.
since?
Yeah.
How much?
I'd have to go look at it. I don't know off the top of my head.
She made so much money on it.
Or she at least got out of
she
losing
did.
it.
Yeah.
Let's pull it up and look real quick.
Okay.
You think she just made $1 trillion?
I don't know when she bought it, so it really
Yeah.
it makes a difference when she
It's
bought it.
more of a loss avoidance if it was about
So
to drop.
how do I
right?
Google how much Google stock is?
I
the
think-
NASDAQ.
Yeah. GOOG.
I think you can pick a specific thing and look what it was on one day compared to the next.
Let's go a month.
Looks okay in the past
25th?
month.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, it bounced back. Nice. Good for them.
Yeah.
All right, so
Did she lose money?
it was right at 100.
She may have. Maybe she messed up.
She might have.
Well, she looks like she sold at the peak.
99.79, 99.37. So she's yeah. So however many shares was worth or whatever. She had $3 million. So that's about $3 million.
That's
That's
That's what you said. Yeah.
So at $100 a share, that'd be 30,000 shares. So 5 times 35.
I don't know. You get the algebra king over here. So.
Nice
I said I
throwback.
passed it. I didn't say I aced it. Actually, no. I had to take it. Which
That's right. That is what you said.
alludes to that I did graduate, so I did have to pass it. Pretty sure I did get a C in it.
Hey, pass is
Which
a pass,
is-
bro.
Yeah, that's right.
Quote unquote average.
Good enough for Knox City schools.
It's average.
Goodness.
Yep.
Somehow 75% is average.
But we'll see. We'll see. What
So I like the college
how far
model
this
better.
lawsuit
Like
goes.
70 to 80 was a C. In high school, 75. Like, motherfucker, I got 3 out of 4 right, and I'm only doing average.
I mean, so since
Looks like she made a cautious move, but it bounced
since
back.
tail end of the year. So from December, it lost. I don't know, $15.
But look at that. It was trending up before the announcement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it leveled back out. So
Yeah.
if she didn't sell it, she'd be even money today. But she's definitely plus money from when she sold to the following couple days.
Depending on when she bought.
Right.
Definitely looks like she made a move based on that inside information,
That-
which
that-
apparently is
that's
not
the-
illegal for Congress people.
Yeah. And McCarthy was really gung-ho about it until he got the speakership, and now all of a sudden he doesn't care
That's
anymore.
weird, yeah.
I'm sure anybody probably could have picked up the phone with some market insiders as well.
Right.
And not necessarily
Like-
just congressional information
like
coming
the
in.
former Speaker of the House
Right,
who
but-
probably knows somebody at the FCC.
But you're saying nobody has access to this on Congress only. And I'm saying it's not that hard.
I don't know what the
I don't know stockbrokers that have their ear to the ground. I would argue almost better than members of Congress.
I don't
and their
know.
investigation.
They have access
Paul-
to documents that people outside of Congress don't have.
Paul
though.
Pelosi or the Pelosi family, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
is outperforming the best of the market by like 20% year in and year out.
There's lots of social media accounts
and
dedicated
there's
to
been
tracking their
fucking sheep
trades too.
that have like shit on newspapers and have done better than stockbrokers.
Okay. So, but your argument is that she and Paul could be making some phone calls, knowing people that know things,
Right.
and so that acting like stockbrokers.
I'm
But they're
saying,
outperforming stockbrokers, like
I'm saying
professionals,
the odds
full-time
can
people.
go either way.
Okay, I think the odds of that being true are very low. That they're that good without knowledge that the rest of us don't have. I think the odds of that are very, very low. If we're going to talk odds.
So I lost for a second. Are you saying
possible?
the
It's not- I don't think it's
shitting
100%.
goats have insider information, or
I want to see.
No, I'm saying a lot of the stocks are just a fucking crapshoot
Yeah,
from
I mean,
time
it
to
is.
time.
it is?
I'll give you $10 and a goat. Turn that $10 into $300 million for me. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, the Pelosi's have consistently traded pretty well, and seemingly have made some moves that look like they were on inside.
Yeah, the pre-pandemic stuff was
that was the most
specifically
egregious stuff.
crazy, but
Who was it? He was a senator from North Carolina that was under investigation as well. Blanking on his name.
Santos. No, that's. I mean, he might tell people he's the senator from North Carolina.
He'll probably claim it at some point.
I think Richard Burr. I think it's Richard Burr.
Was one of the ones that sold off or bought a bunch of med shit right before the pandemic or whatever.
Yeah, I think it had to do with the early pandemic as far as stock trading.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
They should have a feeling. They should got a good sense of the market.
Yeah, this Santos character is too much for
I can
me.
agree with some of that, but at the same time, I also kind of think that it wouldn't take too intelligent of a person of a pandemic coming up. Like maybe I should invest in pharmaceuticals.
See, but I
and
think
something in the medical industry.
But I think the real egregious part on that
It's
one
like,
is
you
that
knew what was going on. It's like, no, I knew a bunch of people were getting sick and a bunch of people were going to have to buy some medicine, so I put stock in NyQuil. Yeah,
I think I don't know, because I think there was a lot of Department of Defense intel on what was going on in China way before any media was covering anything going on over there.
Yeah, that's the idea. Is
And
that
that's what
some
they were
information
moving off
is private, is private to the government officials, and they shouldn't act when they have that before
Right.
other people.
I think that's the specific on this
right.
one is that this is when Department of Defense and National Security are looking like, hey, there's a thing going on over here, and it might be a big deal and come over here, and it might be a huge health issue that we need to keep an eye on.
And based on their
Nobody was
classified
reporting
security
it yet.
briefing,
China wasn't telling anybody about it, and so it's like, okay, sell, buy, whatever the fuck it is. Hey, everybody, there might be this thing coming.
yeah.
Heads up. Make sure you buy NyQuil. Not because I bought NyQuil, just because it's the best thing for what's going on.
that's right. That's right.
You know, I mean, that's the... But this Santos character, I think they finally got him, and I think they're finally going to get rid of him. I think the campaign finance shit's going to kill him.
Oh, really? Well,
Yeah.
last I heard, he
they
still
were
got
looking
a
into-
committee assignment, didn't he?
Yeah. Everybody gets a committee assignment.
Yeah, I
you have to
guess
have an
so.
assignment. Everybody's on at least a committee. I think
Okay,
that's
okay.
obligated. I don't think there is a...
Oh, maybe I misunderstood. I thought he got something that was like a good spot or something. Somebody was saying they should have held him out or whatever.
Well, they throw... They
The picture of him, he just looks
no,
really
they throw him on
creepy.
small business committee, which
Not a big deal.
sounds cool, but...
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. It's a lot of people in the GOP were turning against him as well. It's like, yeah, buddy, you should probably resign.
Right. Well,
He's
what's
like,
what's
"No, I'm not gonna do
embarrassing
it."
is that he got elected.
Oh,
He
but
got through the vetting as a member of the party and stuff.
To me, it's a failure.
Well, I heard people in his own party had warned him against it. It's like, hey, you got some shit on you.
right.
Right, and apparently, like half his damn campaign staff was like, "Deuces, bro, I ain't doing whatever this is." And then a couple people came in and just like, "We'll finish this off or whatever." But like the reality to me, that's an issue.
There's some
is-
crazy thing like that. May not even be his name. They interviewed some guy, and he was like, when I went to high school with him, I knew him as blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then there's his drag name, but he's not a drag queen, whatever. That
Right
thing
now,
is.
he said he only did it for fun, so he's not a drag queen. I don't know how that works. I
It's
thought
just
they
like
all
more
did
and
it
more
for
like
fun.
weird stories keep coming out. It's like the more
Yeah.
people dig, it's like, well, shit, did
Well,
you
the
see
campaign-
this?
The finance thing that happened is that his staff went in and they filed some amendments to his financing thing because there's this big block of like $5 million or $500,000 that was originally listed as from the candidate, and nobody can figure out where he had it to give it in the first place.
I heard a little bit about
And
that.
so they
yeah.
did some refiling, and so but they don't say it was from a third party. They still say it's from the candidate, but they don't say it's from the candidate from a bank loan or something like that. And who's going to give this guy a
that
bank
he had
loan?
some questionable of like where he got some
magic
of his
money.
from.
Where did he get it from to put it into his campaign?
Well, and like there's some company that he's affiliated with indirectly or directly that was a straight up Ponzi scheme that he was a affiliate
Something
for.
like that. And I heard there's some like vet that's come out that was saying that like
Oh, he stole his dog's money.
Yeah,
Son
yeah,
of a
Yeah,
bitch.
well,
he had like a
I can't remember what the story
It
was.
was like
I was
a
like,
GoFundMe or fundraiser.
Right,
for
forget all the other stuff.
vet
Forget all the
surgery.
other lies. That one is
That's
it.
a killer
the one
for
that
me.
needs to-
Yeah,
that's
stole
the
money
only
from
truth.
sick dogs.
puppy dogs
Yeah,
from
Screw
a
that guy.
veteran. Like hell no,
Yeah, it's like $3,000 surgery for some dog. He stole
double
his
cross
money.
me now.
That's
He
right.
screwed out a vet and his puppy.
I messed up.
But yeah, like this guy, it's just like it's almost like it's
like,
almost
no,
so
I'm-
ridiculous that it has to be real. Like you couldn't write this. Nobody could make this up.
He's
This
like,
is
no,
like
I'm
Game
not
of Thrones
quitting.
level.
I'm not quitting. Fuck that.
I mean,
I'm not going anywhere. You're gonna have to drag me out of here.
I think at some point you got to be that brazen. You just got to sell. You just got to own it and run. See what happens. But I mean, I think it's failure. I think it's failure of the local Democrats. I think it's failure of the local Republicans.
Yes,
I think it's a failure of the. I think it's the biggest failure of the local media. Mm-hmm. Like there was no local media on it, and I think that's the broader issue that I think we have at as a whole. We have no local media anymore anywhere.
Well, we talked about this last time. Like I don't think it's necessarily investigative journalism to constantly question every little thing that any candidate has come out and said. There's no way to run down every single statement that every single candidate has made.
But it seems
I
like
mean,
most of this
just
stuff is
the-
pretty surface level. Simple.
Just the
Yeah,
Democratic
simple
primary.
fact-checking,
There were
though.
like 20.
You still got to do some simple, you would think that the Democratic Party, if they had a candidate to run against him, would do some opposition research.
Which
right?
I believe
Like,
this
who's guy?
district. I believe this district was a competitive. It was a right-leaning but competitive, like a sub 10-point district in the whatever. I think it was a Biden +1 or +2 district.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it was. It wasn't like it was Knox County.
Right.
Where it's a 12, 15-point district. I didn't
It was
mean
like
to throw that in
Queens
your
of the
face.
Bronx.
Yeah.
Like
And so it's not like it was a gimme for whoever won the Republican primary.
Like it should
But
have been
who
competitive.
primaried against him? I mean, forget
Right.
that. Who primaried against him and didn't do any of this? Who's the Republican that was against him in the primary that was just like,
How many candidates run in that? Just in New York City alone. How much money do you think the New York Democratic Party has to do deep investigation research?
But again,
on
I
everyone?
don't think.
I mean,
this
I
is,
get with you. It was a contested race.
but I don't think this is. I think I object to the deep research part. Like a lot of this stuff seems like it was like reporting is like, this is pretty straightforward, pretty right there in front of you. You just had to Google his name and
I mean,
put
to
a couple
dig
of
down that
keywords
he had
on
a
it.
shell company, it's going to take some digging. To
Okay.
find a vet that he got screwed over, it's going to take some digging. To find a college roommate that he didn't go by his name, it's going to take some fucking digging.
Okay, to find a
What do you think they found that was easy to
check
find?
with admissions at a college that he didn't go to is not going to take a very specifically hard digging. To
Why
check
would
with
you
a company
question?
that he
But-
didn't work for,
Like I said, why would you
wouldn't-
question that? Like,
wouldn't
most
take
of you are
specific-
going to take people at the face value because it would not raise too many hairs on your head that someone put down they went to a college. Like, okay, yeah, they probably went to college.
I've gotten at least
not-
2 jobs where they've never seen my college transcripts. I just told them I had a degree in engineering and they believed me. So, but you would think
I think much of the world will take things at face value.
I mean, I
You would
I feel
hope
like
there would be
that's the
more
job
due
of the
diligence,
journal-
though.
I
Yeah.
feel like that's the job of journalism is to do at least a little bit more than a surface level search.
right.
Like
you,
that's
you dig into some that seem like they could be wrong, but I mean, why would the guy lie about it? Because you assume that it's something you could easily find out.
Like
which,
that. Like okay, so the
we
reason
found
like,
out you can easily find that shit out. But
like when we made the hard shift on the show to be politics stuff more often than not was when
When
the
did we do
District
that?
18 was the District 18 race back in 2018 when it was Manus Oster and then Virginia Couch. Like that, District 18 is my district. I decided I'm going to be better at paying attention to who I vote for and who I'm voting and all this different stuff. So we're in primary season, and I'm looking around trying to figure out who these people are. Manus has a little bit of stuff. Most of it's about his work with Prestige and Honor Air, and also a little bit of stuff from when he ran for city mayor. I guess that was 18, so it's 20. Sorry, it's 2020. Some of the stuff kicking back to 18 from when he ran for mayor. So there's a little bit of stuff on Manus, who he was, what he was in for, what his politics kind of were.
Right.
There was shit zero on Oster, and shit zero on Couch. Mm-hmm. And this is a state race, has some pretty decent consequence, and I am looking for it, and nobody else is. But these are the people we vote for,
How do you know that no one else was?
I mean, I hadn't found Compass yet, so I'm sure Compass had a little bit more than what I was finding. But at least in the big 3 news TV stations here and the big newspaper here, there was little to nothing on any of them. And yes, it was early in the process and whatever. But you guys all kind of joked with me about calling him and interviewing him. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And they're like, nobody calls us. They don't get interviews.
Okay.
I'm not saying you, the other guys that are still not here, the losers. That are annoyed with me in general, more annoyed with me than you, but you put up with it. But I'm just saying, like, so.
I mean, I didn't think we had a chance of actually getting an interview. I was like, man, there's no way they're going to want to talk to us.
Right.
We're a podcast with like
some of these things
3 episodes under our belt.
Yeah,
they're going to be like, what kind of like hit job is this going to be?
I think some of the best stuff you've done is the candidate interview stuff. I think it's real raw and honest, and gets at some things. So I like that.
I mean, because like I said, like you don't get it.
Very informative.
Yeah, you just don't get it. Yeah, and you hear somebody talk for in a kind of more extended format, and then once they've said some things, you're like, okay, I can grab on a couple things here and really look into it more. Right? You get some clues about them.
My favorite criticism was you didn't follow up on X, Y, or Z. It's like, great, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. But, I at least started the conversation, that was
right.
Like, I started the conversation. You have some groundwork. You have somewhere to go from what we've started with.
Right.
And hopefully somebody else will ask some questions too. And I can, and as I've gotten better at it, I could get more out of the other sources that I do have. And, But yeah, I'm looking forward to, seeing what's going on in the city races. Speaking of.
Oh yeah. What about?
I don't know, just anything going on in your life that may be happening this summer?
I
need to know about.
I guess I'm not going to say that I'm not going to run for anything yet because, like you said, the petition day is like May or something like that, right?
Yeah, we got a while.
And I don't like to see people run unopposed.
Well, so what district are you in the city?
Oh gosh, the lines got redrawn around my neighborhood. I think I was in like 4 and now I'm in 5, or I was in 5 and now I'm in 4 or something like that.
I'm so confused because they're backwards.
Yeah.
Like county rotates clockwise, city rotates counterclockwise.
I think I was in Charles Thomas's district last I checked.
So is that seat coming up?
I think so, yeah. I think it's coming up.
Yeah. Because Seema
got reelected. She was 4. She's 4, right?
Yeah.
I think I'm on the border between her and Charles Thomas, between 4 and 5.
Okay. You could. Well, can you run for judge?
There's at-large.
I want to find somebody running for
judge.
There's
at-large seats too. I mean, there's a mayor's election. It's an open primary. So Constance Every has announced.
Oh, I'm sure she has.
Yeah.
So I got into a fight with her on Facebook. She showed a picture of her Neanderthal and said, when this guy came out of the caves, when all the terrible things started happening in the world. And I said,
huh?
It was weird. Like, I didn't get it. And I didn't like the thing. It's my fault. I forget when you're conversing with Constance 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, 9,999 times out of 10,000. It's a race thing, no matter what you do. So it's basically it was Europeans. It was when the white people started existing, when all the terrible shit happened. And it's like, I don't want to go down this. Like, I'm not an African history major, and I don't understand African history to depth, but I'm pretty sure there was some tribal shit going on where they were killing each other before the white man showed up with colonization and shit like that. But I didn't want to argue that point, so I just left it alone.
Yeah, that's probably good.
She was a great show. Like, I really enjoyed having her. She was fun. Apparently, I got her on the right day. Apparently, sometimes she's really, really confrontational and really combative. Some days she's really fun, and apparently I got her on a good day.
Yeah, we were talking about she's a combat veteran. I think she's probably got a little.
Yeah, she talks very. She's like, I'm fucked up. She's like, I went over there and I've got my fucking brain scrambled and doing the best I can with what I got, and it's like get after it.
I respect that a lot. Yeah. I don't agree with everything Constance says, but I do think if nothing else, she's at least putting in a lot of effort. Right.
I wonder if Reginald. You hear anything from Reginald or anything? I didn't call him.
I don't think so.
He's gotten really active on his videos and stuff like that he hadn't been for a while.
I'll have to check it out. I know a lot of folks have been asked if they want to run for mayor, but I haven't heard of anybody stepping up to say they want to run against Kincannon. She's pretty strong, I think.
Yeah,
but
I don't know. Like, it's one of those, like, I don't. It is a strong mayor system here. Mm-hmm. It's city council is the one that I'd be like, I don't know if I'm running for that. If I'm going to do it, I want to do something. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
I don't want to be arguing about fucking leashing dogs. I want to argue about what we're doing with the cops and what we're doing with this and where the money's going. I want to be talking about that kind of stuff.
Well, I think our city council could actually take a lot more power. So, we have a strong mayor system, right? But the city council doesn't have to be the mayor's lackeys. The city council can make their own rules, especially about their own procedure. Currently, city council, the mayor plays a major role in introducing legislation, and by the city charter, I was about to say constitution, but the city charter, by the charter, she's like default. She's the chair, but she doesn't have to be.
Right.
The city council can write their own rules. And I think that change.
Take her out? That'd be interesting.
Take the mayor, make the mayor not the moderator. I think that would make a big difference. You see that in county commission, right?
They like theirs, yeah.
When Jacobs wants to present something, he stands at the podium like a witness or citizen or whatever, and presents his ideas and introduces people and stuff like that. And it's a much different dynamic than having the mayor, who is often the captain and pilot of these initiatives, and the person who behind the scenes is worked up with whoever in the community, to decide what's going to happen. And then she presents it to the city council and presides over it and often argues against them, right? And it's very different than, and she argues against them from a seat of controlling debate, which is much different than the way Glenn Jacobs, the county mayor, does.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I'm good. Like, my most excited, the race I'm most excited to see is that the judge race. That's the one I'm most excited to look at.
I don't think I can run in that one. I
think
there is some
for
qualifications for those, yeah.
I don't know the specifics of the city rules.
Yeah,
but you have to have a Tennessee state license.
Well, can I just take the bar? When's the next exam? I could just try to sit for it and see how it goes.
But I think you have to hold. I think you've had a license for a couple of years first.
Okay, it's probably too late.
I think that's part of it. But
all right. Well, so long-term plans.
Right. So if hopefully if you
I just graduated law school, can I be a judge now?
Yeah.
if it's contested, at least you could go ask. Are you going to make me pay my tickets?
Yeah.
I mean, that's all. It's that judge. It's the city parking and traffic violations judge.
Yeah.
Because that's the only judge the city has. All the other ones are county judges. The city only the only, like, when you go in for a traffic ticket of some sort, it's that judge. It's the only one judge that city actually does anything with.
Statutes aren't crimes.
Statutes?
Yeah, sorry. Never mind.
What?
Never mind. Sorry.
I mean, statutes or statutes?
Statutes. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Sorry. Never mind. Never mind. Sorry.
Right, and then
he's been studying for the bar.
Then we got four. We got 4 seats, 2 at large and 2 specifics, I think, and the mayor.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Because so
was it not? Is it not all 3 at larges? It's just 2.
I don't know. I have to double check it. I don't recall.
I thought it was all 3.
Like I said, I still got to make my city election guide.
Yeah,
where I put in all the different what the races are and stuff like that. And I don't know, like I'm like the most of like the dumbest thing to me about city races is I don't understand the process. I don't understand the district primary and the citywide general. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it does. It does seem like the process is a bit off. And Amelia Parker proposed an amendment to the charter that was supposed to, because she had a coin flip determine a primary that she was in. And she, after that happened, she was like, "We need to make a better rule than this." So she introduced something like that last session, but I don't think it went anywhere. I don't know if that's going to come around again.
I mean, it's Amelia. Not that it's not her fault for trying. It's
right.
She's just.
I mentioned it to Seth. I want to say it was like South Carolina, North Carolina had some like weird law that it came down to a really tight race, and it literally came down to drawing lots.
Yeah,
like it was on their county charter or whatever.
I mean,
if there was ever a close enough tie, that they would literally draw lots.
It is ridiculous, but
that's
at the same
thing.
You can't have an election be unresolved.
But if you think about it, though, too, it's like,
runoffs do cost a lot of money.
That and just the idea is that's like, well, you got 2 people that about the population is fairly kind of even on it. So does it really matter which one? We just got to pick one. We got to figure out how to get one of them in here.
Right.
And so
it just seemed kind of odd.
It does. I mean, it does seem crazy. Don't get me wrong. But
you're like, all right, here's a cup.
It's idealism running into reality is kind of where that
right somewhere. Who's going
to be the next mayor? Here you go.
Mean, the idea that you could have a population tie is the bigger problem, and the only reason you can really get away with a population tying is that few people bother. When it's a 201 to 201 for a 10,000 seat district, and it's a tiny number total. That it's a lot harder to tie when you have 10,000 people voting than when you have 500. I'm sure there's some sort of mathematical thing, algebra.
That probably is.
All right, you got a Florida man? Did you prep a Florida man?
Got a Minnesota men.
All right, Minnesota men.
Minnesota men.
Men, plural. Okay.
Brothers.
Okay, hold on. News of the weird, people. Here we go.
Apparently there was two brothers that were using TikTok to go into casinos, placing bets for people that I guess were somehow paying them to place bets, but were doing it over TikTok. You know, I'm pretty sure it was all slots, too. I don't know. That was just a crazy thing.
So they've
already got, I guess, prosecuted, or they're under prosecution for it.
For like illegally placing bets?
Essentially, yeah, illegally placing bets for other people.
Placing bets.
So people are like out of state or something like that?
Yeah, essentially, yeah, they could be out of state. But I mean, I think even in-state, I don't think
it's not that hard to gamble if you want to. Why would you bother with
real dumb.
TikTok
slot machines?
Yeah, especially
apparently
they have scratch-offs all over.
Apparently there were people they were able to con into giving them money to bet for them.
Huh. Were they paying?
I think they had some like way to. I'm sure they made sure they got their lion's share of it, but I think it was an effort to supposedly pay them back if they bet.
I mean, it does become like a federal crime because it's wire
with slots. It's crazy. It's like, oh, well, you gave me $10 to put on that. Like that roll didn't win, or that pull didn't win.
Mm-hmm.
That pull didn't win. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you missed that one too. Yeah, oh, sorry.
I mean, the assumption would be they didn't.
I thought it was even weird they're doing it over TikTok. I'm like, well, FaceTime. I mean, that's straight up live. I don't know.
Yeah,
I thought TikTok is just recordings.
I thought so too.
But
I have a TikTok. I don't know how it works, but I have one.
So you send me $50 on Cash App or Venmo or whatever, and you send me that $50 to go play 5 pulls on the thing, and I go
video it on TikTok,
and so that
you see it
right. So I can't lie and say, oh, they all lost.
Yeah,
you get to see them, and if they didn't win, then you're like, oh, I lost my $50, and if you did win, you get you're like, hey man, I saw the
and if you did win, they record another TikTok where you didn't win. Like, they keep the winnings.
They're collecting fees for playing slots on behalf of others watching TikTok.
Huh?
Yeah,
the lack of liveness is what makes it real scammy.
State law prohibits placing bets on behalf of.
But I mean,
someone
we've done
else.
it. Like we've done raffles through Facebook on the shop, and we make sure we video the raffle drawing because it's like people get all fucking accusatory, and it's like, look, everybody's name's in the thing.
Let's see.
We're done.
You just video it multiple times until you get the one you want.
Right. I mean, if that argument's still in play, of course.
They use Cash Apps to collect an initial $5.99 subscription fee, as well as $25 for every $100 deposited for wagering. He then streamed live as he and sometimes his brother played the slots.
Interesting.
Running the operation at a casino.
So wait, hold on. They're making people pay to watch them play?
So you would pay them to bet for you, plus a subscription, plus a fee.
I guess you had to have a subscription to bet with them, I guess.
Okay.
To give them that $25 for every $100.
And so if you get, they're probably pulling more than once for $100. I mean, how big is
it's against the state law for betting on behalf of someone else.
Yeah. No proxy betting allowed. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a bullshit reason to get caught over, but it's kind of a weird thing to do.
I mean, I could see it like. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I wasn't sure if it was like they were going after him for, I don't know, an unlicensed business, not paying taxes for their collections and whatnot.
It's probably just related to you're not allowed to place bets.
Yeah, I think it was just the
lines.
Gaming Commission that was going after him. It wasn't like the state revenue service or anything.
Interesting. All right. Well, that's the news of the weird. Last call. Anybody else got any last things they want to get on here?
Oh yeah, I got to plug Pluggables, man. I got
plug Pluggables.
Yeah, I got a YouTube channel, East TN News Stories and East TN Police Stories. Hope you check those out. Also on TikTok,
very good edit
Instagram,
of the
Facebook.
The TN News Stories had a very good edit of the
county commission. Yeah,
Lundy's commission stuff on the McAllister's.
Yeah, I try to. That's kind of what I'm trying to do with that channel. Is just make a lot of public meetings more accessible, and there's always public meeting lasts 3.5 hours, and 15 minutes of it is interesting. So
now they're supposed to be doing. The CTV's got a YouTube channel now.
Yeah, I still think they're just posting.
Still trying to figure out what that's all about.
I still just use archive.org mostly. It's where I go grab stuff from them. So.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm excited that they're planning on doing that kind of thing, trying to get it more out there. Because then we can grab it and pull it and do stuff on here and get sections and stuff like that. And so, it's good because I don't know who has access to. Oh, fuck! Damn it! I just thought something must be fun.
You have access to.
Huh?
You have access to.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. But you said I was wondering who has access to, and I said you have access to.
Right, but I'm saying I wondering who controls the access to as far as how the CTV thing goes and.
Oh yeah,
and the timing of it getting in and out. And all
well,
that kind of
I
stuff.
think so. There were some questions about that because like the most recent workshop didn't show up in the default search, but I think it was like a year rollover thing, like the 2023. It was filtering to 2022, so 2023 meetings weren't showing up.
Yeah,
it usually takes like maybe 24 hours after a meeting, there will be like a 50 gigabyte high definition raw file that's uploaded, and about 36 hours later, there's like an H246 that's a reasonable file size that you can download and manipulate. But it takes almost 2 days, for it to be available after a meeting. So it's not like hot snapping news,
Yeah, and so and especially it's like there was a big thing last night because that's what I'm saying is like because like WBAR will show a news story the morning after where they have clips,
and they'll have a camera in the room oftentimes too.
Right, but it's so like why do we need? Yeah, so again, take out the middleman, let us all access it because they're doing that federally. Hopefully, there's conversations about opening up C-SPAN, taking away complete solo access from C-SPAN and letting it'd be like a house.gov site where you can go and all the cameras that are in the chamber,
streams,
all the cameras in the chamber are accessible. Because one of the podcasts that they're talking about, it's like one of the things that you're going to be really disappointed at when you start pulling all the cams is how few people are in the fucking room.
Yeah,
and he's like, you're gonna pull it up and it's going to be whoever's up there on stage is talking, and then you go to any other camera and there's like 7 people out of the 500 and something
right.
Total
Yeah, it's like that all the time.
460. So anyway, that's the show, everybody. Thank you, Tyler, for coming out. Check out his channels and stuff like that, and we'll follow up to see if he's going to run for a seat. Almost in Agreement, people. We did it. We did a show. We had a guest. We talked about things. Like I said, we're Almost in Agreement. almostinagreement@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. Go to the website, almostinagreement.com. As mentioned, I am working on putting up the voter guide for 23. We only have 6 races, but there's 6 races, and all 6 of them matter. So we need to figure out who these people are and whether any of them are, habitual liars. And maybe George Santos will run for our seats. Who knows? We'll see what happens. Maybe we have one here that we don't even know about yet. So I'll do my best to uncover that. Go to your favorite podcast provider, like it and subscribe there and do all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, tell your friends about us. Let us continue doing what we're doing. We appreciate you guys for listening. Have a great night, and we'll see you soon.